Absolutely. Hi, Dirk. How are you?
Being here.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice to meet you. Mr. Weird, how are you?
Al's.
Another Halloween season Schlock and Awe, the double feature podcast that celebrates all things from the ghoulish to the spooky. And as usual, we are back with more Michael Myers, but we are definitely heading into a new era, I guess you could say, of it. The Rob Zombie era, because we are doing a icky, gooey, bloody, sad, traumatic double of Tony Randel's Hellraiser 2. I think this is the first Hellraiser we've done on the series, and I'm very, very excited, especially this one. Holy shit. And, of course, as I mentioned before, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And here with me is maybe one of the biggest Hellraiser fans that I know, and also huge fan of Halloween 2, but he is definitely known for his love of Pinhead, and that is, of course, the host of VHS. It is the wonderful Dirk Marshall. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, Lindsay. Thanks for having me back.
No, thank you for coming on. I mean, you said you put your hand up straight away and goes, oh, but I want to do one of the Rob Zombies. I really want to do one of the Rob Zombies. And I'm like, well, we're doing Halloween 2, because I don't think I can do this Rob Zombie's original Halloween, as we will probably get into when we talk about Halloween and my relationship with Rob Zombie. But no, this was a wild double. Thank you for suggesting it.
Yeah, I was really excited this worked out, because I think we had did we have Hellraiser 2 kicking around for a while, and then
we did,
Halloween 2 came into play. And then it just made sense, I think, because I was thinking about a specific sequence, but then, as always with these doubles that you or a guest kind of come up with, or a collaboration, you always find these sort of invisible strings that tie the two films together in different ways. So it was really fun to rewatch these two.
Yes, the main string that with these two movies that I got was trauma, a big helping of it. And dodgy doctors. No, the visible strings between Loomis and Dr. Channard in these movies was quite extraordinary. That was the one I didn't expect, because even when I sort of think, oh yeah, this could be good, rewatching it, I always find another string. And for this one, it was definitely the Dr. Channard and Dr. Loomis, these dodgy-ass doctors who are playing with elements that they should not be playing around with. Though Channard seems to not really regret any of his decisions. Loomis, on the other hand, big regret. But before we get into this double, how have you been, and how is VHS going?
It's going good. It's we have a couple different alternate formats that we kick around now. So one of them's called Screen Teens, that Matt Bledsoe came on to do, where we pick a movie from each year that someone's a teen, that really sort of shaped their taste in films. And that's really fun. I have another one of those coming out with Bill Ackerman from the Supporting Characters podcast. I have a Camp Counselor episode coming up for Wet Hot American Summer. And then when this comes out, our newest episode will have been yourself and Carmelita Valdez McCoy joining me for an episode about 30 horror movie recommendations. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, yeah. I came away with about 10 recommendations from that episode. That was such a fun one to do, especially with you and Carmelita. I sort of felt like the Witch of the Coven who insists on wearing color. Just as witchy, but we'll try and wear red occasionally. But no, hanging out with you two was the best, and just getting to talk about a whole bunch of different movies was insanely fun. So I cannot wait to when people get to hear that. But no, I'm really the Camp Counselor coming on for Hot Wet American Summer is going to be fun. One, that movie is amazing, and my partner also did Camp. Why is it so hard to say? Camp Counseling in the early 2000s when he was traveling around the States. And so he went up to Maine and did a few seasons there. And when he watched it, he was sort of going, oh, yeah, this is actually very accurate, a lot of it, to what his experiences were. So, and some of them very not, but not killing children like Paul Rudd does in that movie quite often and dumping them on the side of the road.
Yeah, I found a great guest, and two, I wanted to do a movie that like I could quote start to finish, so it really challenges me in a time frame of an hour or two, because I can't go into every gag and every joke and every. So it was really fun to balance the reality of a camp counselor job and the absurdity of that wonderful movie.
Oh, it's such an easy thing to quote. Even I'm just thinking, as soon as you mention it, I'm just thinking of moments like Paul Rudd just throwing the tantrum and throwing his food on the thing, and then Janine Garofalo just making him go pick it all up. And I don't know. The sort of swapping of the cardigans between Michael Showalter and the actor he's got a crush on, and
that moment is one of my favorite moments in cinema, where he's like, "That's my favorite shirt, so I'm going to need it back," and she goes, "Right now," and he goes, "Yeah." And she just puts to give it right back to him. It's like so comedically perfect, and Michael Showalter's so wonderful in that movie. I really love Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh yeah, the relationship between Bradley Cooper and Ian Michael Black. It's just that sex scene goes on for so long. Anyway, this is not Hot Wet American Summer, but this is but it's so easy. That's what that movie does. You just like, I want to watch that movie again.
Yeah. Michael Ian Black is also he's so good in that role. And I'm going to stop myself because I will keep talking about it.
Yeah, because I'm going to get into the whole Vinny side, and that's just with the, oh my God. Anyway, but no, you've got some like amazing stuff coming up on the show, so please listen. It's one of the most fascinating ones. And also, Screen Teens is such an amazing show because you just picked this era, like you were talking with Matt Bledsoe, who was becoming a teenager in the early 2000s. And it brings back your memories of that time. And I'm like, going, oh yeah, I was doing other things, or I was seeing other things, or you kind of remember what you were doing around that time, and it's really, really cool. I really love that format of the show because you can get different generations and everything like that. So
yeah, and it's so interesting because it feels random when the person's like, it was this year to this year, and I'm like, okay, and then I look at the things that happened that year and the movies that came out, and because of like distance in time, they all seem like classics, where at the time it's just like, well, yeah, whatever. But now you look at them and you're just like, holy smokes, like this is crazy. And it gets deeper the further back you go. It's just, it's very fun. Very fun.
No, that is going to be really, really fun. And speaking of fun, we might as well be getting into one of... Actually, I didn't realize how berserk this movie was. You have an image of what a Hellraiser movie is, especially when you get deep into the sequels. And then there's Hellbound Hellraiser 2. So yes, I have seen Didda before I saw Hellraiser 2, funnily enough. But before we get into this, we might as well sit down. Curtains are opening. As I always like to imagine, this is a night of entertainment. Dirk, what is going to be your first trailer for Hellbound Hellraiser 2?
Okay, so butts in the seats, everyone's got their popcorn, and so as a transition, I wanted my first trailer to actually be, and you can find this on YouTube, there's a synth pop band called Beborn Beaton, and I have their entire discography, and and there's a remix by Funker Vote of a song of theirs, and it's called Dr. Chenard, and it's kind of a love letter to the Doctor in Hellraiser 2.
Inside your brain and doing my research based on subtraction. How does it feel when the Doctor is inside your head and the light?
And it's so bizarre, and the image that you'll see on the still for the YouTube video is like Pinhead holding his face like he's embarrassed or something. And I just think, people sitting there, and all of a sudden the screen comes up, and then you just hear this bizarre synth pop Dr. Chenard's song. And then that is what's setting the moment that, like, okay, we're going to start seeing some more trailers and then watch the movie. I just think it would be a very fun transition.
I listened to this morning because I realized, shoot, I actually need to watch this. And I'm like, this actually kind of fits for Dr. Chenard. I don't know how else to explain it. It's a very Sith pomp thing, and it's not exactly the mode of especially because we'll get into the score with Hellraiser 2 and how bonkers that gets. But that's much more orchestra kind of thing. But it does actually work for the character. It's got a very... Dr. Chenard is a very distinctive character, as we'll get in with to Malcolm McDowell's Dr. Loomis when we get into Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Yeah, this just is just fun. I know. I really like it. It's a really good mood setter. Yeah, Hellraiser is a very particular tone, which this kind of works for. Yeah,
it's just bizarre too, and we'll be going to some bizarre places. So I think it's a nice way to sort of set the table for the meal today.
Yes, I think this is absolutely perfect. So we're going to go on to a movie trailer, but I am going to go for John, there's kind of, with my trailers, there are two themes that keep popping up in this series. And one of them is, of course, John Carpenter, because that is where Halloween started, but I'm going to go for his Mouth of Madness from 1994.
This one will drive you absolutely mad.
The riots began because the stores could not meet the demands of Sutter Kane's novel, In the Mouth of Madness.
Kane disappeared 2 months ago without a trace. He's the guy that writes horror books.
You can forget about Stephen King. Kane outsells them all. I need to know if he's alive or dead, and I need that book.
It's a setup. I just have to work out how it's set up.
Kane's writing has been known to have an effect on his readers.
See this? It's a map. This whole thing has been staged.
You just get out.
This is not reality.
It's all happening for real, Trent.
When you think of Lovecraft adaptions, for some reason, John Carpenter doesn't keep coming up as one of the great adapters, like, say, Stuart Gordon, but he's actually a really good Lovecraft. He just doesn't make direct adaptions. But all his Apocalypse movies, with The Thing included, is insanely Lovecraftian, and I think he is as good as Stuart Gordon in terms of Lovecraftian, and I think The Mouth of Madness is just, oh my god. Speaking of weird people in a room and the town, I love this movie a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I hadn't even thought about it since seeing it in the theater, because in the theater in the 90s, I was just sort of like, well, that was weird. And I just didn't think about it again. And then I did an episode this season with an author and writer, Patrick. I just lost his name. Oh, Robert Brockway. Sorry. Robert Brockway. And he writes for 1-900 Hot Dog, which is a comedy website. And so I said, what movie do you want to talk about? And he was like, oh, it's got to be In the Mouth of Madness. So I got to revisit it. And with fresh eyes, I was like, this is really good. I don't know why it didn't speak to me when I initially saw it, but I'm a huge fan now.
Yeah, it is. It's got a couple of genres working together, because you have the insurance investigator noir side of it with Sam Neill going to Hobbs End, and then it just getting very, very weird. I mean, there are still moments that actually give me a little bit of the willy, especially when you have, I think it's the character Julia, who's really just starting to lose the plot and becoming possessed, or whatever's happening to her. You never get quite the sense of what this thing is, which is very sort of Lovecraftian. But yeah, the first time I watched it was about 15 years ago. I think it was just, I was going through a John Carpenter phase and watched it and was just like, oh my God, this is not the movie I thought it was. And it's always been high up in my Carpenter kind of listing, I guess, since then. But no, this one hit me like a ton of bricks when I first watched it.
Yeah, that's a great trailer.
Yeah. And what is going to be your second trailer?
Okay, my second one, I'm going to go with Bad Dreams from 1988.
As night falls, a new day begins. A day of unity.
Sometimes a single moment of madness,
Our love will never die.
can last a lifetime.
Come to me, Cynthia. You belong with us. Forever.
was in a coma for over 13 years. Everyone she knew was killed in the fire.
And sometimes your worst nightmares begin the moment you wake up.
He's in there! He's alive! I love this movie. Now, this is the one with Jennifer Rubens, isn't it?
Yes, it has Jennifer Rubin. She's one of my favorite actresses. Many know her from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. It's got Dean Cameron from Summer School and Richard Lynch. Basically, Jennifer flees a suicide cult. And then
run by Richard Lynch, I just think is the most important thing about this movie.
Yeah. And then people start dying in a hospital. I think it's very fitting for this evening. And I'm always surprised when people haven't seen Bad Dreams. So anytime I can throw something out there that I think deserves more love, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I think it gets labeled as a Nightmare on Elm Street 3 ripoff, which I guess it kind of is, because it is sort of taking that idea of hospital, you don't know what's real, what's fake, people sort of dying. You've got this kind of, I think Richard Lynch was marketed as this other Freddy type, which he's not in the movie. He's something else. Yeah. Kind of completely. But I think it is a really smart movie, and I think Jennifer Rubens is really great in it, actually.
I agree.
Yeah, it's it's a really, really smart movie that should get a little bit more credit for what it's actually doing, because it's doing a few other different things, and not just the Nightmare on Elm Street 3 thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, for my second trailer, I am going to go with Jim Henson's The Labyrinth from, I think, 1986?
Where you go with a head like that?
George Lucas, creator of the Star Wars saga. And one of the most innovative forces in modern entertainment, David Bowie. Together, they will take you into a dazzling world of fantasy and adventure.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
A world where anything seems possible, and nothing is what it seems.
Everything I've done for you. I move the stars for no one.
Anyway, it's The Labyrinth. This David Bowie in all his tight whited glory. It is just it's one of those movies I grew up with. But when you're watching Hellraiser 2, the kind of whole matte painting of it looks like the labyrinth when you're looking at the hell.
Yeah.
And I was sort of struck by that. And it is very much about Kirsty and also Tiffany going on this journey through these kind of winding corridors. I think for those purposes, it was probably on a budget. How do we keep hell contained? Whereas the labyrinth was much more open up, and how we can have all these kind of worlds. But yeah, I just kept thinking of this is just a much more twisted version of the labyrinth, and the labyrinth is actually pretty twisted. Jim Henson's got this amazing way of giving you something really insane, but kind of couching it in safeness, which I think he did a lot. And by the way, it was 1986. Labyrinth came out in 1986. So yeah.
Yeah, I love The Labyrinth. I remember when it came out, I was confused by it, but I loved the creatures things. I love Hoggle. I showed it to my daughter, and she was very confused, so we're going to try that again in another year or so.
Yes, it has that effect.
Just start too young. I don't know. One of my favorite things about Labyrinth is in my 20s, my friend Aaron and I, we DJ'd around, and one of my favorite songs to play, like around 1 a.m, was the Dance Magic Dance song.
You remind me of the babe. Babe with the power. Power of voodoo. You do. Remind me of the babe.
And it would take people a second to realize what it was, but everybody would lose their mind when Dance Magic Dance was going, and they'd be dancing around about the baby and all. It was a very fun time.
I would just sort of play just when it's quiet and there's not many people around, if there's a few, and they do the same thing. As soon as Dance Magic Dance comes on, you see people sort of stop, look up and go, wait, is that? Yeah. And then they go, oh my God, it's a fantastic song. I think Jennifer Connelly is when I first discovered her, because this was a big sleepover movie when I was a kid. I adored her. David Bowie, well, this is where I became a David Bowie fan, I think, was Labyrinth. Yeah, very formative age. And yeah, I think Clive, even though this isn't a Clive Barker movie, but it comes from a Clive Barker story, the heart-shaped, I can't remember what the original story was. Anyway, Hellraiser was a Clive Barker thing. Clive Barker and Jim Henson kind of share some of the same DNA. They love creatures. They love kind of this kind of practical, weird kind of world. And when you let Jim Henson off kind of the leash, you got things like Dark Crystal and The Labyrinth, which are movies that should never have been made, but I'm glad they were.
Yeah, they both are very imaginative and fantastically minded people, where they would just, I mean, if you look at Clive Barker's art, it's wild.
It is
very, very, very varied, from like simple line drawings and like paint strokes to like unbelievably like precision, realistic imagery. He is incredible artist, and then to be also incredibly talented at writing at the same time, and then to let himself not be confined by like prim and proper concerns of things. It's he goes to places where you're like, whoa.
Yeah, and all the movies that he's directed, or at least movies that had been adapted, like say Candyman, which is a movie that's come up quite a few times in this series as well. Yeah, he's not concerned about what you think prim and proper is or what you think how it should be done. He's like, no, if I'm going to have a whole bunch of monsters and Nightbreed living underneath a shack or whatever it is, the cemetery, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I want. And I'm going to try and make my imagination come to life. And Jim Henson did the same thing, but because he started off in Sesame Street and The Muppet Show, which I was a diehard fan, people sort of forget that, no, he could be just as imaginative. He could just go in this really wonderful direction. And that's where you get The Labyrinth from, and which is kind of a perfect way to segue into Hellbound Hellraiser 2.
The vision is renewed. The power is reawakened. The fear is reborn. Because they have returned.
Time to play.
Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Brace yourself for terror you have never imagined.
And your suffering will be legendary even in hell.
And horrors you can never escape.
And you wanted to know. Now you know.
Last year, they brought hell to Earth. Now, they'll take you through hell.
Yeah.
Now, this was the first time watch for me, so I'll get into my thoughts. But you actually had said in our DMs that this is the horror movie you've seen the most, well, except for the aforementioned Candyman. You've seen this the most? Maybe?
Yeah. So this is probably my most watched, or definitely top 3 comfort horror movies. On a script level, Peter Atkins, his writing, he just does everything right. He beefs up Pinhead's bravado with like delectably evil panache. It's like the wordage that he delivers in this, I was just like, this is an icon. I mean, even his writing for Dr. Chenard is like sort of oddly darkly poetic. And I think that the prose element of this, there's no hand-holding in this movie at all. And I love that, because it's like what they say is like it's like a decoration on a beautiful cake of horrors. It's like, it's so incredibly wonderful. And he just expands on the world and improves upon the original, which, I mean, more so than just by giving Chatterbox eyes. I would put this on for like one specific scene, which we'll get to, just to watch people's reaction as they scream no. But visually, this movie rules. It has like classic horror elements of like the mummy, catacombs, castle-like halls, creatures, incredible practical effects, and dream logic. It's just, for me, I love Hellraiser 2. It's easily my favorite Hellraiser. I know, but it's just how I feel about it. When I discovered it, I thought it was like made for me. I couldn't believe the skinless effects and things and how incredible they looked. I love that. No, I'll just stop there because I'll just keep gushing. But how was your first time watch?
A little surprising. As I said before, I have a very specific view of what a Hellraiser movie is, and this is because of the first movie and the later sequels, which I know are terrible, but I am beginning to have a real soft spot for. Don't ask me why. But it is usually a whole bunch of people get together, they find a box, they party, Pinhead shows up, and they kind of turn much more into a slasher, but it's kind of almost like a slasher thing by the end. Like Dead World, I think it's Dead World, with one with Henry Cavill, is much more of a jigsaw slasher-esque kind of movie than anything else, with Pinhead just hanging out in different rooms going, hey, how's it going? And though when you sort of watch it, it sort of becomes very, there's a formula which all horror franchises get into very, very quickly. And that's, but when you watch the first, and I kind of thought I had seen it, because, oh, yeah, I've seen 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, I think I know what this is. And then you watch 2, I'm like, especially when we do get to the mattress scene, I'm like, oh, no, I have never seen this. I would absolutely remember if Claire Higgins is coming up from a bloodied mattress, eating a guy's brain. And this is a movie that really goes into the nightmare logic, more so than any other Hellraiser movie I've seen. Even 3, and I adore 3, but that's... Okay, so what if Pinhead came into our world and hung out and had a nightclub and all this kind of stuff, and then 2 is like, oh no, you're going to hell and you're going to see the imagery of hell.
But
and
also,
this is where we're taking you. And I was just sitting there going, when Chernard does his thing, I'm like, oh, I have never seen any of this. This is imagery that sticks in the brain.
Yeah, exactly. It's where it goes is one of my favorite things. The way that things move and aren't explained, like walls opening up and all this, it's just like, I love it so much. It's I think the performances are all really solid. Ashley Lawrence is like our final girl. I love her performance. She's like cautious, wounded, traumatized, but she's also strong and brave, which is really cool to see. I'm sad we never got a movie with Ashley Lawrence and Heather Langenkamp together. Like that would have been some final girls, right? Although Heather was attached to a Hellraiser movie at one point, but I think it fell apart. But like you said, the score for this movie is like enchanting. I love the string arrangement so much. There's this like hardcore person from back in the day in the electronic music sense, not like rock, called Speed Freak, and he opened his record by sampling the Hellraiser strings and having Pinhead say "Welcome," and then this music just went crazy. But I love it. I love the musical arrangements for this movie are fantastic. Yeah,
it was Christopher Young who did the score for this, and he is no slouch. I mean, he's done things. Just looking even at his 90s stuff, let alone his he's had quite the career. I mean, he did, speaking of an Elm Street movie, he did the second one with Jack Shoulder. He did Flowers in the Attic, The Fly 2. Good, it's a good one for 2s, actually. But he did Set It Off from the 90s, Tales from the Hood. He's just actually got this really the Wonder Boys. I actually like that score. No, he's kind of one of those ones that's just been around for so long that you kind of forget that he's around. He's worked with Sam Raimi a little bit, especially for Spider-Man 3 and also Drag Me to Hell. So no, he's a guy who kind of knows. He's worked in such a variety of genres that he knows how to ramp it up, but he goes fully insane. I mean, just those big strings, and it feels like booming an orchestra, and it's kind of fitting because this is the one where you go to hell. You actually, because you only get hints of it in the first one when sort of Pinhead and his crew kind of comes out and goes, "Oh, we have sights to show you, and you're the one who opened the box, and pleasure and pain." And you only get like a hint of what's actually happening to Frank down there, and then you actually go down, and it's just these amazing, bizarre images, where you've got sort of Frank, and then Julie is just walking around like she's walking out of like she's from a 40s femme fatale. Like I think of my notes when she's still in her kind of corpse thing, and Chernard's kind of brought her back. I'm like, of course Julie is wearing white. It's just stained with blood. It's just like, that is such a Julia move.
I mean, the imagery in this film, like I guess we should just dive into it, but
Yeah.
But I did want to say, since you had mentioned Hellraiser 3, so I loved Hellraiser so much. The one, and then when I got into two, I was just like, I just need two now because one is recapped in the first 30 seconds of this movie.
It really is. You know, you're in a Hellraiser movie when you see I can't remember the actor's name, Larry from the first movie's face just stretched with hooks. I'm like, yep, I'm in a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah, he's like, Jesus wept. And I just loved Hellraiser 2 so much that when 3 was coming out, I went and saw it in the theater, and I have to revisit it now because I saw it just that one time, and I was so mad about the CD Cenobite and the camera eye guy. I was like, what is this? Because to me, like, 2 felt like a Shakespearean horror movie, just the eloquent ways that people talked, the score of it, the artistry. I was just like, this is amazing. And then 3 was like, hey, it's the 90s. And I was like, I don't like this at all. Like, I still saw 4 and 5 in the theater, but like I was not a fan. So I do need to revisit that because I've heard a lot of great things said about it now since then.
No, it is definitely more Pinhead in LA, but it is, I like 3 a lot. It's Anthony Hickox, who I know you are still a big fan of, that director. Yeah. It kind of it's definitely Pinhead in the City, but I do very much enjoy it. I think it's still got that really bat crazy imagination to it, though nothing I think can top 2 now that I've seen it. I'm like, oh, now I understand why people say 2 is better than 1. I understand. Still think my favorite's still 1. I think that movie is special, but it's maybe just because the way that I saw it. I was not expecting to see it at an all-night marathon, and they said, oh, we got the 4K restoration of Hellraiser, and I went, I don't think I'm ready for Pinhead, and then saw it and went, oh, this movie is incredible. Like,
well, I mean, I think for me, it says more about myself. Like when I got to go on Film Feast and rank Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels and or the movies, and I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 more than 1. And I know that 1 is like the serious situation that Toby Hooper made. It's the classic. I get it, but I was just thinking about rewatches. And for me, like I love Clive Barker's Hellraiser, absolutely. But 2 is always going to be the one that I would put on. It always will be. The gags, the nonstop visual effects. I could watch it with the sound off and just be like, this is cool imagery and while I'm listening to music. But if I turn the sound up, I'm like, I love everything that everybody's saying. It's just, it's good. It's a good one.
No, it's like, no, I completely get that. And I can understand if you love this kind of thing and then you watch Hellbound, I just need to watch it. When I watch it, I'll go, oh yeah, I actually think it is better than the first one. But the imagination on display is insane. It is really kind of keeping true to what feels very Clive Barker-esque. Like, it's trying to not mimic his style, but it's like, oh no, he started this thing, we might as well just keep going with it and have a character who has tentacle fingers that can, like, sprout into anything that he wants. I think one time he's trying to beckon like Kirsty with like a flower out of his finger, and I was like going,
the finger,
yeah. I just like, he comes beckons with the finger, and I'm just like, no, that's no.
I love those stop motion effects. And I just think it's also interesting for the second film for them to be like, we're gonna humanize Pinhead. It just seems like something you would do like way later on, but they're like, that's the thing for this one, is we get to see Doug Bradley's face in the little bungalow thing where he's like solving the puzzle box. And I love how he solves it. There's like a sound effect, and then he's in this like rounded room and all of the windows slowly go dark. You don't know why, you don't know what that means, but it looks so cool. And that's like what I consider like Hellraiser like visuals, is like something's happening and we don't know why or what it is. It's part of like why I love Phantasm. I just love these dream logic-y kind of things where you just go, well, that's not good, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah, and it really does. And all you have to do is see Doug Bradley's face, which is, and it instantly humanizes the fact that, he was a human being. He was in the army, somewhere, you're guessing somewhere warm, and he's playing with the box, and all of a sudden it goes dark, and you're like, oh no, you've because one thing I love about Hellraiser, it's always be careful what you wish for. It's like the first one with Frank going, I want to get to the height of sexual depravity or something kind of like, never done before, so I'm going to solve the box. And then he goes to hell and he's like, yeah, no, I don't like this, Julia, you need to get me you need to get me back. And this is kind of the similar thing with, because Julia never asked she likes the power of it, but she never actually asked to go to hell. I've always got the sense of that. So when we're talking around this movie, and it's hard because it's so much dream logic that it will just pick up plot threads and drop plot threads very, very easily. Because the whole thing is Kirsty wants to, when she realizes that she can go into hell, is to find her father, but because the actor didn't want to come back for it, that just kind of gets forgotten, and it's more about her trying to save this other girl who you find, well, we might as well get into Channard, who's been, who actually wants to figure out, is it called the puzzle box or the configuration?
The Lament configuration.
The Lament configuration. He's been obsessed with this and trying to figure out the Lament configuration for reasons that anyone who wants to solve it. And and you find out he's been using his patients in this mental health hospital to actually achieve this. And when you find out he's been messing with people's brains and doing operations to try and get them to be able to figure out the configuration is really dark and disturbing. So when he's sort of watching Julia come back from this bloody mattress which she was killed on in the first one, it's the most insane scene. And before then you have this poor guy who thinks he's got maggots on his skin. Oh my god, the scenes in this, I could just run through just the scenes and just go, oh my god, what is happening?
So the actor that plays the guy who sees maggots on his skin is Oliver Smith. He's the same person that plays Frank, who's writing on the wall in one scene, who's skinless because they couldn't get that actor to come back. Mr. Browning, I think, is who he plays. But yeah, he plays like 3 different roles, I think, in this movie. But
Actually, another thread to Halloween too.
Yeah.
I had a few when we get there. I had my wait, isn't Jeff Daniel Phillips dead? Oh no, he's just playing a different character. Got it.
Multiple characters. And the Hellraiser is really about like the first one, it's desire to experience like the ultimate pleasure and pain and whatnot, pushing limits. And Channard is really looking for what's the great beyond that he can find. And so he's been studying these occult things and the puzzle boxes and the lore of all of this, but he can't like crack it. And so when you first meet Imogen Borman, who plays Ashley, you see her and she's got a puzzle in her hand. And as a viewer, you're like, oh no, he's going to somehow use this poor girl who's mute to open this gateway to hell. And you're like, oh geez. And then it goes even further than that. It's pretty amazing.
No, I was actually surprised how far this movie went. Because he does use this poor girl to open up a gate of hell. He goes in, he's hanging out with Julia. He's brought her back because why not? And always Julia is such a fantastic character. To even have her back for a little while is just like, yes. And then she wants to, well, if you want to know all the secrets, you might as well become a Cenobite. But he comes like the ultimate Cenobite. I mean, the fact that he dispatches the original Cenobites from the first movie really quickly, he turns them back into their human form, which they look devastated by. Because you got the feeling they've actually embraced the pleasure and the pain of what hell is, or this hell. Because Pinhead keeps saying, no, he's in his hell. Everyone has their own hell. It's not like you just can't go to hell and grab someone and come back. It's not that easy. And you're right, he sort of speaks in these riddles, which I always love, and this one's really nails down on that. So you're just, there's a few times I had to rewind it, and I realized, no, wait, just let this wash over you, don't try and follow the plot, there is no plot, just let this imagery just wash over you. And I mean, the matte paintings in this movie, I love them so much.
It's so good. I mean, just imagery alone. And the plot of it is Ashley's in the hospital and the doctors he wants to use her and Imogen to try to get to this other world. Basically, that's it. And the imagery you get, like the skinless body writing "I'm in hell" on the wall, it's just like iconic. It's etched in my brain. The mattress sequence when he's cutting with the razor and he's cutting across, and we get all this great gore gags, and then he cuts across his groin, and that's the scene that I would show to friends where I'm like, look at this mattress scene. And when he cuts across his groin, every single time people go, no, like they just would say it out loud. And then Julia comes through the mattress, and they were never prepared for that to happen.
No.
And then she has no skin, and she eats his brain, and then she crawls back on the mattress and talks to us. And the whole time, you can't see where the makeup effect ends with her eyes. It's like she has no skin. And when you see her back, you see bones and stuff. It's when she's in his house, which is bright white, and she's leaving bloody smears everywhere. And then he gets a suit for her to wear because she's cold, and it's white, and it's smeared with blood everywhere. It's just all of these images. I have them all at the ready in my brain. It's just so wonderfully planned.
No, nothing about that mattress sequence I was prepared for, especially the fact when he starts cutting himself. Because the effect is so good. They're actually, you can see him cutting something on his body. It's like a overprotective kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then Tony Randel shows you what this guy is seeing, which his body just infested with maggots. And this is why he's been just like harming himself, like cutting chunks out of himself because he wants to get rid of these maggots. And this is a man that is truly sick and deranged, and that's the guy that Chenad uses to sacrifice so he can see what happens. And then, he cuts his groin, and you're like, what? And that's when and then I think his throat. And that's when Juliet comes up, or?
No, he doesn't get to the throat. She comes up because he's still doing pretty good. And then when she's crawling after him, he almost gets to the guy behind the curtain. And she gets him and sticks her hand in the back of his head and then eats his brain.
Oh my God, that is so awkward when you're snooping around someone's house and then you find out they have a bloody hell mattress.
It's such a bummer.
Oh, such a bummer. You're just hiding behind the curtain going, oh man. And that poor man. I thought he was going to last the movie. Nope.
Oh, that's another great thing about this movie is it moves quick.
Oh, so quick.
He figures out what happens. He gets back to Kirsty and he's like, everything you said is true. And she's like, okay, great. So then they go to Chenard's house, and the first thing that happens is he runs into Julia, who just kills him after he finds a bunch of corpses hanging up in her room. It's just like, there's no buffer. It's just straight into it. And then Kirsty just goes up and finds his corpse, and like 30 seconds later, it's just like, what?
And Julie's just like going, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh, crap. You're back.
She's got this great thing she says there about like being the queen now. It's this wonderful bit that
it's amazing. You thought I was the wicked stepmother, but in fact I was the wicked queen. I'm just like, yes, Julia.
Oh, good.
She's always an amazing villain. I don't know how Claire Higgins plays her, but she plays it as very soulful, as this woman with intent, and that you can never trust her because she's always got one eye on you and one eye on something else she needs to do, except when it comes to Frank. And even when she meets Frank again, she's kind of like, fuck you.
Yep.
I learned I learned from my mistake. I trusted you a little bit too much than I should have, and that's not happening again.
Yeah. And I love that, like, the next thing that happens is they open the box, the walls open, and they just go into this labyrinth situation where we get the beautiful matte paintings, and there's this giant thing spinning around. And that's actually when the person that does the score, Christopher Young?
Yeah, Christopher Young.
He uses Tibetan drums, and he does Morse code for the word God. When you first see, it's so cool. He talks about it.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's like one of those details where you see someone, they didn't have to do it. It wasn't part of the script, but he just thought, you're seeing this thing that's more powerful than anything that we've seen in the film. Of course, not broken down in any way whatsoever. So we have no idea. We're just like, yeah, I guess. And then he's like, he has that in the score that it's saying the word God. It's so
no, I love the entrances that Tony Randel gives the Cenobites in this movie. They get to each walk in on their own, like the chubby one. He probably
Butterball.
Butterball. The lady. I should write down their names.
Or she's either called Deep Throat or Vagina Neck. It's like I don't know how she got two terrible names, but that's what.
Oh, you think poor Butterball got a bad name? Then you go, I have Vagina Neck.
Or Deep Throat. Come on.
Come on, guys. I mean, Pinhead has got a good name. Can't you give anyone else like Chatterbox or that kind of thing? And then just as that kind of, that thing comes out and you just see him walk out of the mist, and you're like, yes, it's Pinhead. And I like how he just looks at Kirsty, or it looks at Ashley Lynch, and then just goes, you didn't call us. The person who called us is not here. Where are they? Yeah.
He walks in and Vagina Neck is going to cut her up. And he goes, that's not who hands didn't call us, desires did. And they're all like, oh, okay. Like that explains anything to them. But I just
they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they get it. And I love the Cenobites too, because they aren't fast. They're like, they have an eternity. So they're not concerned. They even say at one point, we have eternity to know your flesh. Go ahead and run around from us. It doesn't matter. Like it's not concerning. And it's so interesting. You're like, oh wow, there's really no thing that's constantly stalking them, you feel like, in this, because they could pop up at any moment, but it's not like a Jason or Freddy, not Freddy, but like a Jason or a Michael Myers situation where it's just this thing is coming towards you and you're not being able to stop it. These guys just do whatever they want, whenever they want.
They are just like always hanging out, which is kind of why I love the Cenobites, because you're right, they've got eternity. They are not, if you run away from them, I'm like, well, as you said, we have eternity to know your flesh. You can stay here and deal with it now, or you can wait until your time is ready and then we will just come get you anyway. But you're going to end up on the hooks at some point. That will happen. And Doug, there's something about, actually, I am looking forward to the new Hellraiser because Jamie, what's her name? The woman who's playing the new Pinhead looks amazing.
Yeah. She also sounds amazing. They did a vocal processing on her voice that sounds otherworldly. And I'm like, it gives me goosebumps because it's like someone taking initiative to take something into a new direction and be like, well, it's not, the voice needs to be upsetting to hear. And I'm like, yep.
It does. When you hear that, I have so to show you in that voice, you're like, oh no, I do not want to see those sides. But when I see someone who usually isn't Doug Bradley in the Pinhead get up, I'm like, that looks wrong. Something about it could only be Doug Bradley is tied to Pinhead just as much as Robert Englund is tied to Freddy Krueger. There's something about it that's just visceral. It's the thing. And seeing him without the makeup, but still in the Pinhead suit, he looks so small.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. The makeup bolsters him up. When he's actually in the suit, he just looks very tiny and very weak. And it's such a devastating moment. And you almost feel sorry. You do feel sorry for all of them when they're turned human. Because it's kind of like their power is taken away. And even though they are terrifying figures who I would run away from in that moment, you're like, oh, but no, no, I don't like that.
Yeah, it is so upsetting because he is human again. And then Channard just slices his throat open. So not only does he get killed, but he's literally gasping for life. Like, it's like, he goes from being such this incredibly strong presence to just so fragile and gets such a sad death. It's like, oh no. It's, but that's one of my favorite things about this movie is that like Channard becomes, I always call him Leviathan. I don't know if that's what he is in it, but and he battles with the baddies. Like for a second, it's like, oh wow, we're getting the baddies versus baddie in this battle, and it's very cool. And I love that we never understand where these chains come from, and that Pinhead can just like point anywhere, and these hooked chains shoot out, and it's so cool.
Oh, yeah, 3 loves those chains. I mean, they go absolutely mental on them. It's like, Anthony Hickox was like, we need more chains. He can do that. And then when you realize how powerful Channard is, it's actually terrifying because you're like, wait, Pinhead is meant to be the ultimate demon or ultimate god of kind of most powerful thing ever. This new guy comes in with kind of wire wrapped around his face. I love that image of the wire.
Oh, let's just talk about that for a sec. So Julia walks Channard into the unknown that he has sought his whole life. And he literally says, I wasn't prepared for it to look like this.
Yeah.
And then box spins up out of nowhere, and she basically puts him in this giant box that turns him into this like Cenobite monster creature doctor. And he gets wires stretched over his face and tentacle drills in him and stuff. And it's like, I love these weird tentacle things. Like even the beginning of the movie where it shows how Pinhead becomes Pinhead, there's these tentacle things that are putting the nails in his head. And we're like, what are these things? Like, I just love that this movie gives you more questions than answers, so that we're all just like, what is the beyond? Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah, and the fact that it's got the giant configuration, and that fact that it's changed into the triangle thing, and it's it's Imogen who kind of figures out that she needs to put it back into the box for hell to kind of close up. It's like the opening. Channel's like opened hell. That's how I kind of took it. He's now opened up. It's a free-for-all. You have all the patients just figuring out their own configuration, and they've got, it's all linked to chains, and they're like in their face, and hell is now descending up on the world, and it's these really, really powerful images where, again, nothing is completely explained. You have to kind of add things in, like when you're watching, as you said, Phantasm. Where you sometimes just have to add things in to go, okay, I see how that does, but it actually, that what you've added in is meaningless. It doesn't actually matter to the actual form of the movie at all. It's a movie that you can just sit there and just let wash over you, and you're just watching this amazing imagery that you're glued to because you can't take your eyes away. I would argue for either of these movies. Each movie is, no matter how horrifying they get, you're going to keep glued no matter what is happening on screen, which I think is a real testament, because I think even Rob Zombie, I think, will do it where I'm like, okay, now I need to look away. I can't look at the screen. I never took my eyes off Hellbound.
Yeah, well, and like right after Chenard disappears in this box, we're like, okay, so Julia's our bad guy, and Julia's gonna go get our two ladies that are running around. And she does, but then this crazy wind thing's happening, and she's sucked out of her skin, and then you're like, well, then who are they battling? And then they end up in this yellow hospital room, and they walk back, and they're seeing all the people in the hospital beds all have like lament configuration boxes with like chains coming out in their face just as they're solving them. And then through these giant doors comes Dr. Chenard with this giant dick tentacle attached to the top.
Yes!
Of his head. And it's so badass. And that wasn't originally in the film. This way of showing, because up till that point we think maybe they're out of hell, like they're just on Earth and it's fine. And originally, and there's a picture that you'll find quite easily online of Pinhead and Deep Throat in doctor outfits that have blood on them, and that's not in the movie. It was never shot. Originally, you were supposed to see these two doctors in their scrubs, and then suddenly the pins were going to come out of his head and reveal that he's actually Pinhead and they're not, on Earth, they're in hell or whatever. And they couldn't shoot it, but somebody shot one still shot, and that shot has been the bane of Doug Bradley's existence since this movie came out, because everyone's like, it was on the VHS boxes and everything. Everyone's like, where's this doctor sequence that's not in the movie? And he's like, we didn't actually film it. Like, we got partway into the setup for it anyway. So Chenard bursts through the window, and it's super awesome. And then Imogen says her first line in the movie, which is, oh shit. It's so good. I really love it.
Even Kirsty looks to her and goes, oh, you can talk.
So great. And then of course Kirsty reveals to Pinhead his origin and who he is. At the Chenard battle with Pinhead where he just kills everybody. So now we're like, oh, I guess Pinhead's not the baddie anymore because he's now dead. That just leaves, like, there's these pivoting moments that happen in this movie with who the villains are that I really love. It's really great. And
everyone's a villain, kind of, because you're in hell, and so everyone you meet is sinister. Like, I love the circus bit when I think Imogen's walking around for the first time, and she's having memories of her mother, and she's just watching these atrocious kind of images of this kind of screwed up circus, and then you see what Frank's been up to, and it's like, oh god. No, it's everyone is a bad guy, and that is why I kind of love how everyone's just taken out really quickly. If they die, they're just out. It's like, when Julia goes, she's out. When Pinhead goes, he's out. When Dr. Chenard has kind of the biggest ending because he ends up being the ultimate bad, but it's a process of going, you're in, these lambs to the slaughter in this situation, and now they just kind of have to get past every single kind of task of hell to get to the main devil, and who happens to be Dr. Chenard, which I kind of like.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love how it keeps shifting, and you think he's maybe gone, and then he's back as this like super baddie. It's really good, and I love that we get this awesome part where I keep calling her by her actor's name, but Imogen goes off the side of the wall, and she's gonna fall to her death, and Julia like distracts Dr. Chenard in a way, and then reaches down to pick up Imogen, and Imogen's like, no, you're Julia. But then the skin comes off, and it's Ashley wearing Julia's skin, and she's like, there's so much blood in this movie. It's like, it's so great.
The blood budget must have been insane. Because I was like, wait, Julia's back, but she had a different voice.
Yeah.
Like you don't hear her voice in it. I'm like, okay, this is weird. But by that stage, I'm just like, oh well, Hellbound's gonna Hellbound, and then no, it is Kirsty go, because she obviously went, it doesn't show it, it doesn't hear it show thinking, but you do get a shot of the configuration kind of in that limp skin suit. That was Julia. So she obviously goes back, puts it on, and to distract Channard to try and Channard, and it's kind of incredible, and just the kind of surprise after surprise after surprise. You're just like, oh my god, it's like no wonder Imogen's first line in the movie is, oh shit, when she sees him coming through the thing, because that's honestly what you're thinking by that stage. Just like, oh my god, what else can happen in this movie?
Well, and they still have such sights to show you, because okay, first of all, when she's wearing Julia's skin, she kisses Channard on the mouth, which is fucking gross. And but when Channard shoots his little tentacles out, they get stuck in the labyrinth, and then the wires that are wrapped around his head cut his head in half.
Yes!
And that's how he dies. He's just half a head. It's so crazy. And then they get out, they solve the thing. So then we see the configuration in the sky. The giant pyramid one becomes the square again, which is a cool image above the labyrinth. I love it. And then we get movers in the house with the bloody mattress, and out of it comes this spinning column with, it has all these disgusting things on the outside, and then we get the Cricket Man's face, who gives us the classic "What is your pleasure, sir?" line, and then the movie's over, and I'm just like, perfect ending. Like,
yeah, and I love how that statue kind of comes back in Hellraiser 3.
Yeah, it's such a cool image. They're just like, we got to bring this back.
Yeah, that is such a cool image, because as soon as I saw the movers, I'm just like, oh no, and the fact that he's just like, doesn't go, hey, there's a bloody mattress. He's like, oh, I'm going to expect this bloody mattress. When you see a bloody mattress on a floor with chains, you back out of the room really quickly.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a Hellraiser situation, it is not a situation that you need to be putting any of your fingerprints anywhere near. So this is, I'm just like, just leave that room. That room is, oh my god.
And there's other stuff in boxes. So like somebody was packing in there, just walking around this bloody mattress on the floor, being like, well, we're not taking that, right? Or I mean, we know something bad happened if they want us to move the mattress, because this clearly looks like they need a new one.
Yeah, this mattress is done. I mean, there's a massive hole. It's completely covered in blood. Oh my god, no, it's thing. But I love. Terrible. Oh my god, but I do love that thing when it just kind of spins up and it's just like, yeah, tell me your pleasure. It's like, Hellraiser.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge industrial music fan, and there was a band called The Hunger that had a song called Breakaway, and it opened with the music from the movie and the "What is your pleasure, sir?" line. And I had to go listen to that album after this rewatch of Hellraiser 2, because I was like, I've heard that in a song so many times. And then I went back and I was like, they sampled the chains. It's like, it's wild. But I love that stuff where you hear parts of movies in songs and you're just like, wait, what is that? That's from some, now people just Google it. But back in the day, you had to just like, guess.
Oh my God. When I found out that Tubular Bells was just the first 2 minutes of Tubular Bells, and I listened to the whole thing, I was like, oh my god.
That is a crazy thing.
Yeah, that was a revelation. It's like, oh yeah, I'm expecting the whole thing. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. That is, Tubular's wild.
Yeah. No, this is an amazing, I keep saying this is one of the most imaginative movies I've seen, but it is. Yeah. I love Clive Barker for that reason, the fact that he's willing to push things to the nth degree. He's like, okay, so this is where it starts. Where can I push this and go forward? And this kind of feels what Hellbound is to Hellraiser. It's like you set up this world of these demons, of these, well, Cenobites. They're not really demons. They're these mini hell gods. Mm-hmm. And, okay, so where do you go from there? And it's like, well, we're going to hell. And, okay, what does hell look like? And they may, even though it's obviously shot on a budget, like, because everything's in tunnels, it still feels epic and big and insane.
Yeah, I think that they do that thing that I love it when movies that don't have huge budgets go big in the best way they can. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, it's a few controlled sets, but and they're reusing the same, of course, hallways and stuff. Like, it's, we get it, but it's still the idea that they're going for it. And I admire that so much. And like you said, the imagination, I think Hellraiser 2 and Nightbreed are two movies that I'll always love, I'll always rewatch. And I wish that there was more Nightbreed. I don't know why there's only one Nightbreed when I'm thinking there's so many places you could go with imaginative people living underneath, gravestones and things. I think, Moonface looks incredible. It's just, it's so wild. And that's another movie that has like writing where I could quote the entire movie. It's just,
I love the writing. I mean, every line from David Cronenberg, I adore, because it's just this deadpan, I'm bored kind of thing, which Cronenberg can only do. But for the fact that his character is just the worst, that you're just like, oh, you're an absolute sociopath because you don't feel
another bad doctor.
Another bad doctor, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's just like instantly going, well, they know about this murder. I'm instantly pinning on Craig Boone. It was also in a Hellraiser movie. Jeremy Clayton is playing the new Pinhead, which I'm very excited.
Okay, yeah.
For. But yeah, I mean, I wish there was as many Nightbreeds as there were Hellraisers. Maybe because you just don't have that one single focus creature that you do with Pinhead and Hellraiser. But if we lived in a world with more Nightbreeds, how amazing that would be.
So great. It could go forever. I mean, even as a series, which I'm not a big series fan, I would love it because the creature effects that they would go into, and it would be practical effects, which I absolutely love. It'd be great if they could shoot it like they did the end of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where it's like actually in catacombs and not just on a green screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would, more world building in that.
It would be absolutely incredible. Anything else you want to say about Hellbound before we go on to Halloween 2?
No, not really. I even got out for this conversation. I have the Hellraiser Chronicles, which kind of goes about the first three.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And then I busted out. So I had a friend in high school who gave me the Clive Barker illustration book, which is his artwork. And she it was a comic shop giving these away on the day they came out. She went and got it and then realized how many drawings there were of men masturbating in it. And she was like, this can't be in my house. And so she gave it to me. So I was like, okay, great. And I just wanted to share one image with you. And if any listener wants to see it, you can find me on Twitter. It's VAHUS_podcast. It's just full of images like this, which is a man at a wishing well and a giant penis coming out and just ejaculating in his face. So if you're wondering what Clive Barker artwork looks like, it's a lot of that at a certain point in his life.
It does. He did go through a massive ejaculating penis phase. I'm not going to lie. If you ever look at his art, it's just, I mean, he is kind of one of the great body horror directors.
Yeah.
Not directors, just writers in general. All his stuff is very visceral and very body horror and very kind of thing, which is, why I love how Cronenberg shows up in Nightbreed, being the other ultimate body horror guy. But he is, and this does the exact same thing because Hellraiser 2 is all about pain and pleasure, and it reflects that so much in this movie more than, say, the other. Oh no, the first one does that pretty well because Frank has got some kinks, but it is definitely the first couple. They kind of lose that because it's all about the hell thing. They forget about the pleasure part. But the first couple of movies, there is an enticement to this world. Like whether you've got the three people who are just in chains but obviously cannot stop fucking, because that is their hell. And Shannon's just eyeing them off like an absolute pervert. But it is such a horrific and dreamy scene again, which fits in with this movie. But that is what this series is meant to be. Yeah,
for me, I feel like this is the classiest thing ever made about subversive things. Like it doesn't feel gross and grimy to me, but they're talking about all these different like subject matters, these taboo things, desires and whatnot, and pain and pleasure. But maybe it's the score, maybe it's the script, maybe it's how like Tony directed it, but I just feel like it's something that is I think people categorize it wrong. I think it's wild and crazy and gory, but I don't think it's distasteful in any way. I don't know.
And the fact that Channard's using a young girl, because I think she's only meant to be about 16. Mm-hmm. Who Imogen is playing, is it Tiffany or Ashley? Anyway, that young girl, she's kind of like the virgin sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it is kind of horrific when you sort of see how young she is, and you're like, you should not be anywhere part of this world.
Yeah.
But she's the one who wants to figure it out as well, because you realize that she wants to try and find her mother, and the fact that Channard kind of manipulated them being separated. So she's obviously died and is most likely in hell because of this whole thing, and she wants to try and... So she has as much stakes as Kirsty does.
Killed her. He operated on her brain.
Yes. Yeah.
So he caused her death, which makes it even sweeter when Imogen dispatches the old doctor.
Yes. It's like, you're such an asshole. At least with Pinhead, you're like, you have rules. You have kind of... I can understand your logic, even though you're horrifying, and if I'm in the wrong situation, you will kill me slowly. Channard is just the worst. He's just like, he's a proper villain. He's
He's just abusing people with mental health issues. He's all across the board a terrible person.
Oh, yeah. And that room that he just decided, I mean, with the corpses hanging, and then his bloody mattress room, it's like, oh my God. Channard, look, there's not a... If Dr. Channard ever invited you over to his house, you say no. Just very forcefully. And with another movie that will absolutely make you feel grimy in ways I'm still not used to yet. We're going to get on to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, because we are now in the era of Halloween where we are on just completely different timelines, and we are on the second Halloween 2. The curtains are opening again. What on earth do you show for Halloween 2?
Well, before I get to that, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Jaws came out in 1975. Halloween came out in 1978. Is Halloween Jaws on land?
Yes.
It feels like it, right? I never really thought about it, but then I was listening to someone talk about Jaws and about how they didn't have money to show the shark, and so they were doing all these smart things unintentionally.
And the shark kept breaking down, yeah.
And like
Bruce was not behaving.
The part with the floating buckets or whatever, you know, that whole sequence where they're being whipped around. Originally, that was supposed to see the shark, but then he was just like, if we can't show the shark, let's just show it this, and people will just fill in their mind that the shark is pulling this.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see it, and you didn't know when it was coming, and then it's there. It's this unstoppable force, and I was like, that's kind of Michael Myers. Like, you don't know where he is, but he's coming at you, and I don't know. Anyway.
That's going to get into a point that I've kind of learnt about Michael Myers, that he has two modes, and one of them is definitely the shark. I mean, there is two very famous speeches by the people who are hunting the shark and Myers are talking about their eyes. So the first one you have Dr. Loomis going, he had the black eyes, he had the devil's eyes, and then you have Quint going devil's eyes that roll up in the thing. So both are very famous speeches about eyes in both those movies. But there is definitely a shark. There is definitely a shark thing to Michael that I think makes him very unique among the other 80s monsters.
Yeah. But trailer-wise, I went with Computer Killers, a.k.a. Horror Hospital from 1973.
Lovers who will experience the taste of terror. Meet Dr. Sturm, a scientist who discovered how to control the human mind, whose patients have no choice but to obey his every command.
You're sick! You're ill! You're insane!
A genius who wants to create an army of humanoids.
Well, my friends, there'll be 3 more companions for you very soon.
Dead bodies recycled into faceless humanoids that follow orders to kill. Meet the Computer Killers.
Watch, Jason. These young people are completely under my control.
The synopsis is: a songwriter, disillusioned with his career, decides on a change of pace is needed and checks in at the sinister Dr. Storm's health clinic. It's not long before he realizes that his life's in danger, and he befriends a dwarf who he thinks can help him escape. It also has zombie bikers, so I thought it really fit our theme for today.
No, this is kind of one of those Dirk trailers I watch where I just start smiling and going, oh my god, I cannot believe this is an actual movie, and I'm happy that I know it is.
It's a horror movie. It also is comedic at times. It's really weird, and not a lot of people talk about it, but I think I love trailer as a way of discovering things, because it's one thing to hear someone talk about a movie, but when you just like are shown something and you're like, wait, what is this?
Yes.
In a minute and a half, you're like, here's the movie. And you go, what? I don't know. I think Horror Hospital would be a very fun thing to play right now.
Yeah, because it's going to lighten the mood a little bit, because when we get into Halloween 2, it's going to get very, very dark. But no, I love that idea of a trailer again. I was just watching it going, I can't believe someone actually made this as a movie. That's amazing. So many things I'm like going, wow, I can see choices have been made. Yeah, my first trailer, this is a series that's also actually popped up quite a few times during this series already, because I think this is the series that was absolutely riffing on, it's kind of weird how Scream was happening at the same time, but then that's when Halloween had its kind of upswing. But I'm going to go for I'm going for Scream 4.
This week marks the anniversary of the infamous Woodsboro murders. Local celebrity victim Sydney Prescott chose to return to her hometown.
Welcome home, Sydney. Watch the preview of coming events.
What do you want?
Who is this?
He's trying to do Ghostface.
I'm standing in the closet.
Liar.
Dewey, what's going on?
It is not public information.
It's all over the internet.
It is?
There's a killer out there patterning his murders after the original movie.
It's time for someone new to die. Directed by, of course, Wes Craven. This was his last movie. This is still not my favorite of the series. For some reason, that kid wearing the dumbass who's friends with one of the McCulkin kids, wearing that dumbass camera thing on his head annoys me to no end. I'm just like, take that thing off. But
I've never seen it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my god. If you ever look up an image, who's the actor? Yes, hello, Rory Culkin.
I've only seen the first Scream to shock
you've never seen 2, 3, or 4? Oh
no.
my!
Oh, there's more, isn't there?
There's a 5th one came out this year. There's five in total.
I heard that when 5 came out, people really liked it, and it made me very happy. I just fell off Scream after the first one, so I'm meaning to catch up maybe this month.
People, there is a really strong following for Scream 4, but this was meant to be the reboot of Scream. And, where they got Wes Craven back, I think they've got Kevin Williamson back. Eric Knudsen is one of the characters, and because the whole thing is that he's filming everything he sees, because this is 2011, and everything is found footage, and it's always commenting on the stage of horror that Scream is in. But it is very much comment. I mean, not Liv Tyler. Sydney Prescott, played, of course, by Neve Campbell, is coming back to Woodsboro, and she's writing a book of her experience with Ghostface for the first 3 movies. And
it is interesting.
Yes. Someone is writing. So when someone writes a book about something like this, and Scream has always been fascinated with the retelling of Scream within its world. So there's a series of movies called Stab, which have about 15 sequels in the movie, but you can see from the second one they're making these Stab movies.
Okay.
And they're constantly having Stab marathons within the movie and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of always reflecting. The media of the time is always reflecting back onto what is actually happening with Ghostface. And this definitely happens in it happens in all of them. But yeah, this is the one where this is much more about the idea of telling your story and telling the victim stories. But this, in this case, is Sydney Prescott telling her own story and not Dr. Loomis trying to tell the victim stories in Halloween too. But yeah, I was just thinking, that is kind of interesting. They came around about a similar time, 2009 and 2011. So it's interesting that they kind of were on the same, slightly similar wavelength. Scream 4 was much more concerned about fame, as all the movies are, but yeah, there is a definite tone. I do like how these movies constantly do reflect each other.
Yeah, that's true. I will watch it.
Yes. They're fun. 2's great. 2's actually low-key my favorite. That's the one I will tend to watch more than the original, even though I have much nostalgia for the original. What is going to be your second trailer?
Okay, so my second trailer, I had something selected until about 1 a.m, and then I said, you know what? Gotta go with my heart on this one. So my second trailer is The Munsters from 2022.
I just saw this yesterday.
The back!
Action. That was great.
This is going to shock you.
I knew the moment I laid eyes on you that you were special.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to come over for dinner one night?
Please hold.
He's got a date!
It seems Miss Lily's truly in love.
Oh, Hermie.
Hey, numbskull! When they made me, they broke the mold! With you in it, I presume! No! I think I was out by that point!
I was going to ask you, actually, if you'd seen The Munsters before we got into Halloween 2, so now we might as well just get into it.
Yeah. So it might seem like a chaos pick or like I'm trying to feed outrage, but I'm not. I figure anyone in the theater at this point that's staying through Halloween 2 from Mr. Rob Zombie is a fan of him, his actors, the people he works with, his relationship with his wife. So let's put it on the big screen and showcase the fantastically talented people that they are. Give Munsters what it deserves, at least a trailer playing in a theater.
Yeah, the good trailer, the Blu-ray trailer. I don't know what happened with that first trailer. I was still excited after watching that first trailer because I'm like, I'm going to, even though I'm a bit very hot and cold on Rob Zombie, I still want to see what he does with the Munsters because I know he loves this. This trailer looks like he filmed it in his backyard. But you know what? Robert Rodriguez has made a career out of that. So let's just see what happens. And the second trailer was much okay. And then I watched it and you're right. The people he surrounded himself by, like Richard Brake, his wife Sherry Moon, especially Jeff Daniel Phillips in The Munsters, especially. Oh my God! Every one-liner, that cheesy one-liner, that adorable man, goofy man says is, even when he says like the joke the same time 3 times, I'm just like, yeah, I could take another "I'm hot" joke. Please give it to me, Herman.
Daniel Roebuck is exceptional as Grandpa.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
I feel like he's been playing bit roles in horror movies lately.
Yeah.
The last decade or something. But he hasn't really got to shine. I always appreciate him in things, but Rob's been using him so smartly, so well anyway. And I felt like in this movie, it was like, it's these 3 main characters and they all, I think, are perfect. I think they do a great job. I love the look and aesthetic of it. I love it's a fun tone. It feels like I'm staring at our little tiny Halloween village that we have set up in our living room. It fits the mood, and it just endlessly fills me with joy that he had the opportunity to work on something that he's loved since he was a kid, and he got to do it with his wife and his friends. And I think that that's something that's so awesome and deserves a lot more than Twitter snark.
Yes, I think it's very easy to snark at this movie because it is very earnest. It's very The Munsters.
For children.
This is the thing. I think some children are going to look at this and go, what the hell is this? I don't get the humor. Why are they referencing things from the 1960s? Because it is very 1960s. Yeah. And then you're going to get that one kid or 2 kids that are going to look like the little versions of you and me. And possibly, I know Daniel Lepler, also from Cobwebs, loves this movie as well. And they're going to sit down and they're going to go, oh, this is what I like. This insane, goofy, cheesy humor. I think Richard Brake actually has a dual role in this because I really found out a few hours ago that he actually plays Orlok, the vampire.
Can you believe that? Unbelievable.
Oh my God. And him just showing his pet rats to Lily. Yeah. It's just, this is Peter and he's a kid and this is, da-da-da. And oh my God, it is absolutely adorable. And the fact that there are no stakes in this movie whatsoever. I mean, you think it's going to be the whole someone's trying to steal the house. Yeah. Who happens to be Zola, the I know Gypsy's not, I can't, Romanin, so I should probably say what the not call her that character, and I was gonna be thinking they're gonna try and take the house. Nope, they just moved to LA.
Yeah,
that's
that's the stakes of how the television show was.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny. And I love the references because it's dated even for us, but that's how Looney Tunes was.
Yeah.
You learn who Peter Lorre was from a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It's not like they were like, kids won't get it. Like, it's cool. Kids will figure it out. And now they have the internet. So it's like any question they have, they'll be educating themselves on entertainment that goes beyond Riverdale. That's a good thing.
Yes, it is. And there are some kids who are going to get it because this is very bright. It's very bubblegum. It's just, I mean, you can tell. As much as Rob Zombie will constantly, speaking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, show off his Tobe Hooper love, he is also a huge fan of the classic monsters. He loves the Three Stooges. He loves the Marx Brothers. He loves Universal monsters. That's his thing. And my second trailer is going to really lean into that because I think Halloween 2 really leans into some really silent horror gothic moments, especially when you're dealing with, again, Sherry Moon Zombie playing Michael's mother. It is beautiful, and just to watch this movie where you just see the absolute delight on everyone's face of just what they're getting to do.
Joy.
It's joy. Everyone's happy. It's like, you mean I get to play grandpa and I get to say these really goofy lines and I get to hang out in my laboratory, or I get to be Herman Monster and just say the most silliest things that can possibly come out of a human's mouth. I mean, the whole line of but they really broke the mold with me, and then grandpa yells back, I assumed he was still in it. No, I think it was out by then. I'm just like, oh my God.
It's good. I'm so excited. I'm going to show it to my daughter, and we're going to do a mini episode about the Munsters and one other movie, which I haven't quite picked out yet. But we like to do little mini episodes. Last year, we did Beetlejuice and Ghostbusters versus the cartoon series of each one, and that was really fun.
Yeah, it's actually got a bit of a Beetlejuice vibe to it, which, again, Tim Burton's referring on those old 1960s horrors as well. They all got the same reference. Yeah. They're all coming from the same soup. No, that is amazing. I'm going to take the mood down with mine, just because we are going to be getting into a very... you can kind of see a sense of humor in this movie, but because it is all about grief, it gets very hard to take at times. But I'm going to go for the 1922 movie Haxan.
From director Benjamin Christensen, it's Haxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages. When Christensen began working on the film, in his mind he was making a documentary with dramatizations based on the beliefs and subsequently brutal persecution of people who practiced witchcraft during the Middle Ages. For his source material, Christensen relied on a 15th century book about, and this is true, how to capture witches. It was mostly a trade paperback. But as you're about to experience, Haxan is not at all like a documentary. It's much closer to a horror film, and an uncomfortable one, certainly for the era, but also for July 28th, 2019. There are graphic depictions of torture and demonic orgies featuring the devil himself, because, it just wouldn't seem right to have a demon orgy without the devil showing up.
It is... When I first saw this, I did not realize this was actually just meant to be a documentary on witches. But since...
It's black and white, isn't it?
It's black and white. It is.
So we're going to go from super colorful to black and white. Yes! I love it.
But the imagery is insane. It is literally about how witches are, and it's this very medieval view of it. So it's kind of like if you've ever seen like the Mondo documentaries from the 70s, or even this amazing one called Australia After Dark, where they just made up a whole bunch of shit about how Australians have sex, and it's just like all weird. And plus, I'm seeing Australian actors in this. This is all fake. It's kind of like that, but it is just it's literally witches having an orgy and summoning the devil. That is kind of
awesome.
What this is, and I think it's a really good way, especially when you watch the Monsters, which is all monsters and chaos and amazingness, going into Haxan, which is actually really disturbing in some parts, and then we go into Halloween. I think is actually quite a good road to go on.
Yeah, I showed this movie to my wife last October for 31 and 31. We have a Witchy Wednesday, and this year when she was like, "We have Witchy Wednesday, right?" and I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, you're not going to show anything like that movie we watched that was all boring and black and white. And I was like, okay, yeah, I get you didn't get that, but it was so old. I thought it would be fascinating. And she's like, no. I was like, okay. Well.
No, it was 1922. They hadn't quite figured out how to make movies yet. They'd only been doing it for 6 years.
So I'll show her In Fabric this year instead.
Yes.
So.
In Fabric. Oh, I love In Fabric. That, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what she thinks of the shopping centre witches or the department store witches.
I can't wait.
Oh. So what's this dress doing again? It's doing amazing things. Yes, so with that, we are going to get into a movie I think I'm still grappling with in a lot of ways. This is the only second time I've seen this.
Since the authorities haven't been able to produce a body, do you think Michael's alive or dead?
Will he kill again?
Let me make things clear. Michael Myers is dead. D-E-A-D.
So, how are you feeling?
Nightmares are chewing at my head again. They just seem to be getting worse.
I've had 4 calls about Michael Myers today, all in the space of 10 minutes.
Are you a giant?
I know he's not gonna come back just because of some stupid holiday.
I need you to call 911. We're at 15 Cherry. Maya, what's happening?
Nurse.
When was the first time that you saw Halloween 2? Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
So I saw it in the theater. Are you doing an episode on the first Rob Zombie Halloween?
No, I'm going to get into why.
Cool. So when my wife and I went and saw that, we left the theater. We talked a lot about it. We, having worked in social work for a long time, anytime there's trauma and abuse and stuff like that, we really delve into the specifics of things and why this should or shouldn't be portrayed in a film and whatnot. So it's a lot of conversation, and it's a very dark movie. And so when Halloween 2 was coming out, I was excited to see where he was going to take it, but there was also part of my psyche that was like scared of where he's going to take it. So we saw it in the theater, and we left, and again had lots of conversation about a movie. And I think that's a sign of effective films is when you talk about it afterwards, and you don't just go, all right, that was Iron Man 2 or whatever. You just like, there's nothing to really delve into. So we also felt kind of like how we felt after Fury Road, where it's just like someone had just kicked you in the chest repeatedly for 2 hours.
Yes.
It's just like so brutal, but not pointless. There's like reasons he's doing the things that he's doing, and that's where the conversation falls into place. So I bought it the second it came out on DVD, and then never watched it. I watched the commentary. I watched the commentary. I am a huge fan of Rob Zombie's movies on physical media because he does commentary for all his releases, and his commentaries are the most inspiring commentaries because he's messed with every single film, and he always finds a way to finish it. And he's very relatable. He doesn't think he's amazing at anything. And it's very inspirational from a grassroots standpoint. So I think if you ever want to feel like you can accomplish something, listen to one of his commentaries, because he very much makes it like applicable to, well, you just do this, or you make this work, or somebody puts a roadblock in front of you, you just go a different direction. And I think that we could use that in all of our lives. That's why I bought the Munsters Blu-ray. But that's it. That's my history for Halloween 2 until I watched it again for this conversation. What about yourself?
Yeah, I went and just sort of binged a whole bunch of Rob Zombie movies a couple of years ago. Maybe it was 2019, which probably isn't the best way to experience Rob Zombie when you're watching his movies the first time. No, I think you get into a headspace and you're just like, I need sunlight. But what I've sort of discovered is that there are some Rob Zombie movies I can't look at. I just don't want to. And the first Halloween, which I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between his movies, I don't like looking at Halloween. there's something about it that is really repulsive. I think that's the point to a lot of the way he deals with violence. Devil's Rejects is another one of those. The hotel scene, I'm just like, no.
Okay, so let's just talk about his movies for a second.
Yeah.
So House of a Thousand Corpses, I saw, and I was like, I don't like this. This isn't for me. I'm not I wasn't a huge White Zombie, Rob Zombie fan. I wasn't against any of it. I was glad it existed, and it was cool when he did his own music videos, because I'm like, this guy's an artist. Because his artwork is crazy awesome. He's a musician. I love that. He came from the industrial scene, but people think of him as metal, so he somehow pulled that off. And then making his own videos, and he's riding around in the Munster car. I was like, this guy's living the best life for himself. I think that's great.
He really is. He's living the dream in some respects.
And then he goes to make a movie, and it's totally messed up, and they fire him, and he has to buy it back and then recut it and reshoot it, and then he releases it. So when I watched it, I was just kind of like, I don't know. It's not for me. And then Devil's Rejects came out, and I saw it in the theater, and I loved that movie. I walked out of the theater and was like, wait, why? And so then I went back the next day, and I saw it a total of 5 times in the theater, each time bringing back somebody else, being like, no, you've got to see this. And every time the other person was like, I don't know why you keep watching this movie. But there is something about that movie with the way it's written, the comedy involved, even though he doesn't think it's funny, it's very funny.
The Tutti Frutti scene in the car is amazing.
Yeah, that whole sequence, the whole part about Elvis and the brothers, why am I not thinking of them? Marx Brothers. All the facts about that, the performances by all these 60s, 70s actresses and actors is amazing. That movie just blew my mind. I bought the soundtrack, and I don't like classic rock. It really hit me in a weird way. And so I've been always interested in everything he does after that. Not because I think I'm going to love it, but because I think he always makes interesting choices. And there's reasoning behind the things he does. So with the first Halloween, the violence is very intentionally not good to look at. It's very upsetting. And there's a part where the kid from one of Robert Rodriguez's movies, I forget which one, but the little redhead kid that gets bludgeoned to death with a log.
Oh, yeah.
He's got broken blood vessels in his eye. I mean, it is awful to experience that film in parts. And that's the point. It's just so repugnantly gross and awful. And that's, he's saying that this is what made this monster, which I get that people hate that. But one of the things I wanted to say about this is that we're not talking about John Carpenter's Halloween.
No, we're not.
We're talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween. And people always say, these are the worst 2 of the franchise. They're not a part of the franchise.
No, they're a completely different beast. I mean, they get lumped in with it because it is about Michael Myers, but this is absolutely not John Carpenter's Halloween at all.
The Halloween franchise with all its weird offshoot weirdnesses, and now they're saying that some movies don't exist, but these ones do, and H2O never happened, and whatever. And it's like, well, I admire that Rob Zombie wanted to tell what he wanted to tell, and that led to the second one, which has one of the best sequences, I think, in a lot of movies, period. But
yeah, there's a lot of that. Because I actually really like House of a Thousand Corpses. My partner he's not the huge Rob Zombie fan, but he does have some Rob Zombie t-shirts. He does really like his music because he loves industrial, and he likes industrial metal. That's kind of his. Though he's downstairs listening to Clearwater Revival, so that shows you what
he's in the Devil's Rejects mode.
He really is. No, I love how so much Rob Zombie uses classic rockabilly stuff in his movies. He'll never actually use his style of music that he's gotten famous with. It's always the rockabilly stuff. So yeah, that he's in Devil's Rejects mode at the moment. And I remember the first time I saw one was Lords of Salem, because Dan was like, oh, it's a new Rob Zombie, we have to watch it. I'm like, oh, God, there's this guy that you... Okay. And I thought it was such a dirty movie. It's like, does someone know when shower? And now you realize that Lords of Salem is his best looking movie, and kind of the crispest. So, but yeah, there were just certain movies, and I think even though I think Devil's Rejects is one of his best made movies, it gets under my skin in a way that I don't feel comfortable with, because the switches between them insane violence and them being completely relatable, I can't reckon my head around. Though in saying that, I do kind of like 3 from Hell, which has some I
I couldn't get into that one at all, but it also came out at a time when like there was some horrific racism happening in the world, and they travel to Mexico and kill people who are Hispanic, and I was like, and she's dressed as a Native American. I was like,
she is.
I'm watching this at the wrong time.
Yeah, it was around. Yes, I know when that movie came out, it was a lot of Black Lives Matter, which is very important. But when you're watching that movie and you're like going, Rob, you made some choices there, didn't you? Oh, okay. Yikes. But yeah, for some reason I do enjoy that movie. When it goes down into Mexico, I tend to enjoy it more, which I don't know what that says about me, because at the same time I'm watching it going, you made choices. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're getting into your kind of, this is very, when I'm on the side of the Fireflies, I think I feel much better, even though I know that they're the worst people on the planet, and just Richard Brake running around, I'm like, okay, whatever. And yeah, the first time I watched Halloween, I found it really hard to deal with, because you are dealing with really horrific child abuse. That family that Michael comes from is really horrific. Everyone in that family you feel pain for, except for William Forsythe, who you kind of want him to be hit with a log.
He can die.
Yeah, he can die. That's fine. Everyone else needs to help and to thing. And then, of course, but that does lead us into Halloween 2, which is behind Lords of Salem, my favorite Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah, it's what started him on the path to Lords of Salem, was the dream sequences in this movie. So it's kind of cool when you get to see that sort of stepping stones for filmmakers, where you're like, hey, this is where you started the thing that led to the other thing that I love. Look at that.
Look at that. And I do love the dream sequences in there when Michael sees his mother the first time with a horse, and it has the helpful, this is what a horse means. And I know Zombie is also a big fan of Blade Runner. So he's using very evocative imagery, similar with that movie. But the whole thing about purity, and then you kind of see how he sees the world. And you now see how he sees Laurie, but in reality, he's broken Laurie. Laurie's not the same person she was at the beginning of the first Halloween. She is this broken human being. And when I find... Actually, no, Octavia Spencer's death is actually horrific and it's hard to watch. But most of the parts that I find hard to watch in Halloween 2 is when you're with Laurie, played by Scout Compton Taylor. I think she gives an amazing...
Scout Compton.
Scout Compton. I think it's when she's literally at the point of losing her sanity. You can see it, and that is really hard to watch. And I was actually thinking, oh my God, used to be a social worker, watching that character's kind of losing grip with losing, just completely just not being able to function must have been... Yeah, I could see your wife having long conversations about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's about... You have conversations about that. You have conversations about what that's like for an actor to go that hardcore. It's one of those things that you think, why aren't movies or performances judged on their own performances and not their genre? Because there's people like Taylor Scout Compton in this movie that should have been given an award, and something beyond like a chainsaw award or whatever, because it's like, no. This is incredible acting at an extreme level of emotion in a very dark place. She's on her last thread of her mental state. And the relationships that Rob Zombie's portraying in this movie are very, very interesting and far like deeper than a lot of horror movies and things that I see, because there's two versions. We're talking about the director's cut today, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. There's also a theatrical version, and the big difference between those two is that the director's cut has 14 minutes that was cut for the theaters. And I made a note that most of that is the descent and decay of her relationship with Annie, who's played by Danielle Harris. And in the theatrical, it's 1 year later. And in the director's cut, it's 2 years later.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's 2 years later is because he really wanted this, after the episode of the first, there would be a moment of healing and whatnot. But over time, the strains of these relationships and the decaying mental health of Laurie would have pushed Annie into this sort of motherly role for both her and the sheriff. And I really wish we would have got a third one, because I would have loved to see what he did with this and where Laurie goes, because we'll get to the ending, but I think it's so fascinating, and I would have been really curious about where it went.
Yeah, because I do love the ending, and we will get to it. But I love the relationship between Laurie and Annie in this movie. Annie feels like the weird heart, and she's not in it a lot, but from memory in the first movie, she's the vivacious, she's the Annie character of Halloween. Like, she just wants to go out, she wants to party, she doesn't really want to think about things too much because she's a teenager, and why would you? And then 2 years later, she's now doesn't want to go outside, but yet she's now the mother figure. And the resentment that Laurie and Annie kind of have for each other, but the fact that they kind of need each other because they're the only two that know.
Yeah.
And the process of watching Laurie just actively push Annie away. Like, she keeps going, you don't know what it's like. She's like, oh, I don't know what it's like. You serious? Like, I'm the one person that actually knows what you went through. And now you are actively pushing me away. And even how she kind of... she doesn't flirt with Brad Dourif, but she wants to engage with him in a friendlier way than Annie does to try and up her a little bit. It's a really fascinating relationship. Yeah. When Brad's in the room, she's smiling, she's trying to be, joking around. You can tell it's kind of forced. But as soon as she's alone with Annie, it's sniping. Yeah. And Annie's just sniping anyway because that's who she is. But she's a bit more real with her pain just all around and knowing that it's difficult and you just kind of have to try and deal with it step by step. Whereas Laurie's just got to the point where she's just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and both their faces have scars all over them. Like, everything about this reeks of like this inescapable trauma and constant reminders for her of the horrors that she's endured, Yeah. But before we get to the 2-year thing, like you said, we start off with these images of Michael and his mom and the white horse. But he also gives us like the moment after she killed Michael Myers when she's just walking down the road with the gun and Brad Dourif shows up and reminds us all that he's fucking awesome in every movie he's ever in.
I'm just like going, is this Brad Dourif's best performance? Actually, no, it's not. It's Exorcism
every
3.
One of his performances.
But every single time he pops up, I'm like, oh, you're so good. And he's so good as Sheriff Lee Brackett.
So great in it and so subtle and so like fragile at the right point. And but then when we get them going to the hospital, this is the sequence of the film that is amazing and awful. And in the theater, I had that moment where I was like, sometimes, especially Japanese extreme cinema and stuff, where you're like, if this is how the movie's starting, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of this movie.
I have that exact thought. As soon as you have, I'm assuming it's Annie when she's screaming on the gurney.
So
because she's in pain. I mean, she's just being stabbed.
And her fingers are broken, and the gore effects are unbelievably realistic. Like, they are intentionally showing you how awful and like the damage that's done to this woman is unforgivable. It's so terrible.
Yeah, and she's just screaming, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. But yet every single time they move her, she screams again because she is in just that much pain. And that's something they don't usually show you in the aftermath of a slasher, is how horrifying and how painful, like your nerve endings have been cut in half. Yeah, so it's not like you're just limping around. You are literally in pain. And the fact that you have Laurie walking down the street with the gun, just covered in blood, and all Lee Brackett wants to know is what happened, and she just can't. Which is like, I don't know how to communicate what just happened. He's dead. I think that's all she can say is, he's dead. I killed him. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we see Laurie, and she like goes to visit the other girl, and Laurie's in a plastic leg brace thing, and then her other arm is in traction. Like, her forearm has metal rods bolted to it. It's like, the second I saw it, I was like, oh no. And then, of course, Michael Myers is there, and we get this part where I forget the name of the actress, but she steps out.
Octavia Spencer, Academy Award winning Octavia Spencer, yeah.
And she has this face cut that like haunts my nightmares. It's like, I don't understand if he swung at her and just caught the tip of her nose and her lip, but it is so subtle and so upsetting.
It really is. And she's a really amazing actor. And she loves genre. She goes, no, I love horror. So that's why I keep doing it. I'm like, yes, go Octavia.
We get our first Michael Myers stabbing with her, where you get the idea that like, oh, Rob is going to go really brutal with these killings in this. And it is not a good feeling.
No, I would say this is one of the most brutal in the movie. I would probably say Annie's death is just as brutal. Like, it tricks you, goes, oh, I don't have to see Annie. Oh, no, wait, you are going to show me.
It's,
Rob, why'd you have to do that?
We'll get to that. Oh, my God.
That fake out he does, it's like, fuck you, Rob. That was not called for. But yeah, you get the sense of, oh, I'm going in hard. This is going to be as brutal. It's following all these kind of sequel things of like, oh, it's back. Though every time, the 2 times I've watched this, I'm still trying to think, is the hospital moment just a dream Laurie's had, or did this actually happen and we're just getting like that moment, like the reference to Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2?
He doesn't show us where the dream starts, but it's a dream sequence, I believe.
Yeah.
But because there's things that kind of allude to just like, I mean, it's not really real, but after her death, the stairwell sequence where she's going down and she's got the bucket on her leg, I mean, the plastic brace on her foot, falling down the stairs. She keeps racking the metal thing on her arm on walls and stuff that you're just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
And at one point, he falls into a pit. So Michael Myers, that's where you're kind of like, this can't be real, right? Because he's killed everyone else in the hospital and thrown them all into this like dumpster. And I guess that was cut in the theatrical. But then she's in the rain, and that, I guess Rob said that was freezing cold, and he felt really bad for Taylor in it. But she gets into this little shed, and then he hacks through the shed. It's just this whole part of the film is like amazing. And I've even heard people talk that hate this movie, and they're like, well, the hospital sequence, and I'm like, yeah, you can't even if you dislike this movie, there's no way you can look at the sequence and be like, no, it's extremely effective. Yeah,
it is, because I know the criticism he gets is he swears too much. I'm like, okay, whatever. And how the original Halloween, people are constantly just swearing fuck at each other, or skull fuck you, or that kind of thing. This one, the language is toned down, but because Laurie and Taylor Scout Compton is just screaming at people constantly, it still has that same energy. She's not swearing every 5 minutes, but she is literally screaming in everyone's face because she does not know how to communicate anything.
I think that parts that kind of bookend the dream sequence is the Nights in White Satin Moody Blues video that's like playing in her room and then playing in that shed. I think that that's the 2 parts where you get the idea that like, because that song wouldn't still be playing on loop, and then you're like, wait, why is it on loop? And then it's like, oh, okay, because he kills her, and then she wakes up, and you're like, okay. That's the dream sequence, but it's rad.
It is rad. It is hard to look at. I mean, poor Octavia Spencer did not deserve to get stabbed in the head like that. I mean, just the knife sticking out of her skull. I'm like, oh, that is, ow, oh no.
I mean, I respect so much that he's saying like violence is not cool, like, because obviously horror movies were all like, yeah, rad kills and gore and stuff, but it's still interesting to me to see someone be like, the violence is going to be super hardcore and unsettling for you, so you're not going to be able to cheer when your horror icon kills somebody. I think is one of those things that I think is very fun to see explored, especially since this is Rob Zombie's Halloween and not John Carpenter's Halloween, just to remind anyone listening.
Yes. Yeah, because I know people who do not like this movie, and I understand that. If you tell me you don't like Halloween 2, I'm like, yeah, I get that. It's not an easy movie to settle in with ever. And but Rob Zombie doesn't want you to. He wants you to settle in with the monsters. He wants you to embrace that movie and just go, this is just dopey fun, and everyone's having fun. And they've gone on, I don't think they've gone on holiday, but they went to Romania, so maybe they did go on holiday to Romania.
And Italy too.
Italy, yeah. They did go places and just hung out and made a Monsters movie. That's awesome. But this one, he is literally going, okay, if these people actually survived this event, they are going to be changed irreparably. This is not something that, I mean, the point you made, yes, there's going to be a moment of healing. Laurie's now living in with the
we
bracket
skipped
house.
all of that.
All of that. There's going to be a moment of like, oh, okay, I'm safe. And then you realize, I'm not the same person. Actually, I can't. The trauma. Oh, wait, this trauma that I keep waiting to leave isn't leaving.
Right.
And it's how each character kind of. Annie sticks to the house. She won't leave it. She takes care of everyone. She's got to make sure everyone's okay. Laurie's way is to go full anarchist. That is the only way. I mean, I love the shot when she goes to the bathroom after she's had the nightmare, and just the way the camera kind of stays on her face, but kind of looks, it's not her full face, it's just half her face. so you're seeing the scar, you're seeing a hair curl over it, and you just see her looking in the mirror, just hating herself. This is not, she's just looking at herself and going, there's nothing there I can connect with anymore. It's gone. And that realization of that kind of thing is a powerful moment, and you just see her just going through the motions, except when she's screaming at someone, she's just going through the motions. And yeah, it's an amazing performance because of that, because that's her two modes that she has. She doesn't have anything else because she just can't. It's not some,
And, speaking of great performances, Richard Brake, he's not in the movie much, but...
Most disgusting human being on the planet, yes.
He's so gross, and they had to reshoot this because somebody x-rayed the film at an airport. And so they had shot this whole sequence, and they had to reshoot it. But everyone came back for it, and they did the whole sequence where they hit the cow, which is something that happened in real life. They based that story on reality. But then, Michael is back up again, and Richard Brake has a broken jaw, and he's like trying to move his...
Fuck.
It's so terrible and awesome. And the two guys are just so messed up. Wayne Toth's effects, Korg and everything.
Oh my God, his face is gone. I think from memory, you're just looking at this mess.
Yeah, it's so unbelievable. But I love how he just like the bassiness you hear. Like I watched this with headphones on, and when Michael's feet hit the ground from the back of the truck, it's just this big like boom, like the monster is back up. It's really great. And then he goes and talks to his mom and himself and the horse. I think his little self is there then.
Yes, because he keeps seeing himself as his little boy as when he got to be with his mother. And the saddest thing is he got to be with his mother once he was institutionalized. That's kind of where you got the feeling that those visits with her were the happiest times of his life. And that is gut-wrenching. Like, it wasn't when they were all home as a family because she was always working because she had to. His stepfather, whatever, was just a loser, and the house was a mess. And so the actual happiest times of his life is when she visited them at the institution after he had killed her sister. I mean, that is fucked up.
Yes. Yeah, I love they had to recast young Michael for the second one because the Dag was too old.
Yeah.
I think he looks so much more like Sherry Moon that it just really fits. Like it just really... I believe their relationship more. I love the therapist is Margot Kidder.
Oh, it took me a minute. I'm like, wait, is that Margot? I mean, oh shit, I forgot Margot Kidder was in this movie. Being a really great or really terrible therapist, I couldn't decide.
Yeah, believe me, we talked about that for sure. But I just all of that, their two reactions. Clearly, it's not a beneficial thing. I think therapy is a wonderful thing, but not all therapists are going to be for the same client. It's like you need to find the right person.
Exactly. Okay, so why doesn't she prescribe when Laurie comes in and says, "Look, I've been all these triggering moments, which are triggering everything in my head at once.
Yeah,
I don't have any more medication." Why doesn't she prescribe the medication? Is she trying to wean her off?
No, because she's abusing her medication.
Okay,
they give you medication based on one pill a day or whatever. They figure out the time frame. So if you go to a doctor or therapist and say, like, I need more meds, and they're like, you had enough for 3 months and it's been 12 days, you're like not gonna get more meds.
Okay, I was sort of wondering, I missed that. I was like going, why didn't she just she's on obviously something very powerful, antipsychosis probably, and
she's
been abusing
probably doubling down on everything because she's trying to numb herself. She has, for some reason, she hasn't tried alcohol yet, which I find shocking, but
she does toward the end. She's like, it's now my best friend.
I was like, you would have gone to that a lot sooner, but okay.
Okay, you have to do you, Laurie, and unfortunately, you don't have as many options as a lot of other people.
Right.
But I was just going, okay, that makes sense. She's been abusing her medication, just trying to numb herself, self-medicating.
I also love that we get Howard Hessman in the movie, even though it's for such a small role and he doesn't get murdered. I just love Howard Hessman so much.
He just comes in with a hippie rant, and then he goes, but I'm not paying for anything.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Actually, the cast in this movie is insane. I forgot how stacked this thing is. I mean, as we said, it's got Margot Kidder. Octavia Spencer, the guy you mentioned before. It is just even the smallest people just who are like, come in just to be murdered or just to have a hippie rant.
The guy, Richard Replit. No, what is his last name?
Hang on, I'll see if I can find it. He's the one who gets murdered in the shed. Richard Reel, I think his name is.
Richard Reel, yeah. He is. He pops up, and you're like, well, he's gonna be, and then you go, oh no, he's one of the nice people that's gonna get murdered brutally.
He's really nice. He's like, I'm gonna help you. Just calm down. I'll lock the door. See, you're safe. I'll be back. And then I'm like, he's so gonna get murdered. And yep, he does. I mean, yeah, it's kind of got everyone. Richard Curtis Brown, who's popped up in a shit ton of things, plays Linda's father when Loomis, we'll get to Loomis. Mark Boone Jr. comes up as a real arsehole who you're actually quite happy to see Michael kill in that one. I'm like, yeah. Kill him. That's kind of the slasher moment. I'm like, yes, I want the good kill.
Yeah.
As we've mentioned, Daniel Roebuck, who we mentioned for the Monsters, has a small role. Octavia Spencer. Weird Al shows up. Oh my God, the Weird Al. We'll get to Loomis and talk about the fact that he calls him Mr. Weird. Loomis calls him Mr. Weird, I think is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Dwarf, Richard Brake, Margot Kidder. I mean, I was actually so surprised how stacked this cast was, considering... I mean, one thing I love about Rob Zombie is that he always brings in these older actors from the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
And gives them roles with reverence. Like, he just doesn't go, I'm going to use you because you're cheap. He's like, I watched your movies and I love your movies. Can I put you in a movie? He constantly does this. And that was kind of the Margot Kidder kind of thing. And
well, he felt like Sid Haig should be a lead role in a movie, so he made him a lead role at a time when he had 0 going in his career.
Exactly. I don't even think he was acting at that. Was that Jackie Brown? Something like, at one point he didn't even have an agent. He'd left acting.
Yeah, I don't think he was doing anything. And instead we get more Sid Haig, which is awesome, as opposed to like when Tarantino brought back Travolta. Well,
Travolta has many highs and lows, and Travolta's going to Travolta. But no, I mean, he did this. Well, Tarantino did the same thing with, Jackie Brown again. Why am I forgetting his name? He's very hunky. Lead of Jackie Brown. Sorry, I thought the sub edited this out.
I didn't see it.
Oh,
I know.
You would actually might like Jackie Brown if for a mainstream Tarantino movie, that's the one you might actually like. Robert Forster.
Oh yeah, that's why I've almost watched it, because I'm like, I should watch that. I like him, and then I just watch Alligator again.
True, but there is a nice Alligator reference where he talks about getting hair plugs. I know that is the one. I think if I was going to recommend a Tarantino movie to you, that's the one I think you would get the most out of. But yeah, he does the same thing, and he gives, and he lets them do stuff. I mean, we keep talking about Brad Dourif being amazing because he always is, but him as Brackett trying to keep this household together, knowing that each girl is fracturing, but just trying to calm. That's his way of dealing with it, is just calming everything, which is not working, by the way. You can tell that this ploy is used to work. Now it's just not working the way it used to, and he doesn't know he just doesn't know what to do, and it feels very true to life.
Yeah, there's a sequence in it with the pizza, which I think is so great because you see him kind of cracking the girls up. Yeah. And it's so wonderful. I guess that there was a bunch of stuff where they were filming that where he was making references they didn't understand, and so there's that sequence he's describing who it's is it a director or I forget now, I just watched it, but he's used a cultural reference that they don't get, and he's explaining to them, and that was part of the real conversation that they were having, because he mentioned something and the girls were like, I don't know what you're talking about, and he was like, what like, this is so great. But it's the one sequence where you can see him kind of doing something more than sending a cop over to protect them, or like, that's basically the extent of his care abilities. Yes. He's like, someone put a gun in front of the house to keep the monster away. Like, that's it. He's not going to be doing any good therapy at all there.
No, I do like, you can tell he did this last year, like the line, but Annie tried to kick me in the balls.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Like, yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. Like, this is what he does on Halloween. Like, he gets someone there, send with a gun, things are going bad, and he is great. But yeah, he doesn't have as much to do, but that little moment at the table is so great, because you can kind of see how that family unit kind of functions. Like that at the breakfast table. Like, it's really early in the morning.
Yep, the breakfast table.
Annie's trying to make sure he eats, but then he takes all the coffees, which she thanks, and then she's having a fight with Laurie because they must just fight all the time now.
Fight. Yeah.
And you get two senses of how this family kind of works. They don't want to be apart from each other, but yet they're always just going to at each other as well. They can't help it because that's the closest person you are closest to.
Yeah, and it's those little bits that are in there that Rob includes that, or as I call him, Bobby Z.
Bobby Z? Hey, Bobby!
He puts these little humanizing elements in there for him so that when he finds Annie dead, and we feel the weight of this for him as a father, and Brad plays it so well, and the cops can't walk, they like lift him up, he's so full of grief. And then when it gets to the part where they're like, we know where he is, they're like, you can sit this one out, and he stands up and he starts walking, he's like, I think you should drive. And I'm like, oh shit, like he's gonna go get him. Like I just get so excited about it. But it's partly because of Rob's very great way of handling this character.
No, you feel especially Annie's death, and I still don't know how I feel about the fact that Annie dies. I think it fits for the story. I think it fits for the tone, because this movie is about just grief and how you can't get over something like that. But at the same time, I'm like, you put her through enough. I mean, can't you just let it go? Can't you just be okay for once?
Yeah, nobody's okay in this movie.
No one's okay. No one.
Be mentioned in Rob Zombie's Halloween films, this is very much a start to finish, everything's bad and it's gonna get worse.
So yes, Annie has to die, and because I remember her death being, because she's naked she's naked from the top up in both of her stabbing scenes, because she's falling around, and then that's when she gets stabbed in, and it feels very exploitative. I think that was kind of meant to, and I think it's very much playing on the fact that Danielle Harris as a little kid fighting Michael in in 4 and 5. So that's got that added layer of like, oh, okay, what are you doing? Okay. And then in this one, the death scene is horrific because at first you think, oh, Rob spared you. Robbie Z has spared you.
Bobby Z.
Bobby Z has spared you from having to see this moment. It's just gone black, Laurie's found the body, and then it starts flashing back. And you're like, oh, Rob, I thought you... fine. And it's a truly horrific moment. And it's this thing of, oh, you think you're going to be okay. No, I'm not going to let you get off the hook this season.
It goes away from it, and I forgot.
Yeah, I thought, oh, good, I'm not going to see Annie be murdered this time. And
then Laurie and her friend come back, and as they see the different spots of the house sort of where the struggle takes place, it flashes to show us what it was. And it's such a clever reveal in a way, but it's also super awful because you don't want it to be happening. And then when Laurie finds Annie all bloody and on the ground and stabbed and stuff, you're like, oh God. And then she's not dead yet. And he makes us watch her final moments. It's so brutal.
Yeah, it's kind of like, how can I make each scene more brutal? One of the most painful scenes, again, apart from Laurie screaming at Margot Kidder for more meds, and I don't think she's kidding when she says, I'm in pain, I can't do this. I don't think this is her who's exaggerating, okay, I just need meds because I'm addicted. This is, I literally don't know what else to do anymore.
Nothing's helping.
Nothing's helping. Nothing you're doing, nothing anyone else is doing. Everyone's not helping. And then she finds out that she is, in fact, Michael's sister because from the book. Which I think is a really good way of letting her find out, because it's, again, even more horrific.
And so two things. One thing is, we've been revealed that Michael Myers has been living in a shed in a field, just kind of vagrant style.
Just hanging out, eating dogs.
Yeah. And then he discovers that the book's coming out from a billboard, and then he's heading to the town, which is what made me think of Jaws, because he's just this unstoppable force that's going to walk to you and kill you. It's just going to keep coming. So it keeps cutting between the story we're seeing in the town and him still crossing fields and still moving toward. And then Loomis we get, which we've got to talk about Malcolm McDowell in this movie, because it's been 2 years and his character has now shifted into this like disgusting version of himself where he's into like the wheeling and dealings of this book and thinking about the movie rights or whatever. And he's such a slick bastard, but he's still Malcolm McDowell, who's an incredible actor. And so when he gives this presentation after we meet the publicist and everything, there is a part where he's like, all like, look at me, I'm this guy, I'm Dr. Loomis, and somebody says something about the victims, and you watch his face drop and his tone change, and it's something only an actor as good as Michael McDowell could do it. It
exactly, because he's playing this very fine line of this presentation of I need to seem sympathetic.
Yeah.
Because basically every single time, I love how the pushback he's getting on this tour, like it's a disaster. Like, it's basically saying, why did you write this book? Don't you feel it's exploitative? And don't you take fault for what happened? And he does have a hand to play in what happened to Myers and what happened to the people he murdered. And he always kind of doesn't, and then you can tell it's just practiced, but he's such a good actor and his tone drops, but you can tell he's going through the motions still. It's like,
well, he's practiced this response to be like,
he has.
I very much stay with the hearts and minds of the victims. And he's like, it's so well done. I watched that sequence a couple times because it's a question that you have in your head where he's presenting this book and you're like, you're such a slime ball. And then he turns it and you're like, oh, okay, he does have fit. Wait a second, you almost got me for a second, Malcolm McDowell.
You almost did, but no, this is a practice response, because I remember we were watching this documentary on Elon Musk, and it was definitely something that was being glowing of him. It was talking about his trying to get to Mars thing, and he was talking about the astronauts, and someone posed a question, but aren't you worried about the risk that you're putting these people under by doing all these space missions? Because it is still very dangerous. And the documentary tried to have his response that he was empathetic, but I think actually, is Elon Musk neurodivergent? I have no idea. Anyway, it just, something about it seemed off. Like he just could not do that. You can tell he was trying. It just wasn't there. And the documentary was like, look, he's empathetic. I'm like going, this man does not give a two shits about those people up in space. He does not care, and he's really doing it badly, and everyone in the room's going, yes, yes. I'm like, oh my God, is that what it means to be wealthy? Is even when you were showing empathy badly, that everyone was just going to agree with you anyway? Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that Malcolm McDowell's doing, much better because he's a better actor.
Yes.
But he's doing this thing where he's sort of, and that's kind of the whole thing, and then you get to the Chris Hardwick interview, and again pushes back. He's trying to make a joke out of it, but he's actually going, you're disgusting. And he's having to, you can tell the facade's dropping, and he's like, okay, can you stop asking me this question? I wrote the book. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to make a lot of money. Stop putting these questions to me. Because it reminds me that I'm making money off a tragedy. And I'm hurting the victim. I'm hurting the victims by doing this. Like, this is not a book that you got the feeling that he went and interviewed Laurie and Annie and the families of the victims. He just wrote it, his experience as Michael, and used these people as kind of fodder for his book. And when he gets asked about that, the more he gets asked, the more irate he gets. I mean, even Weird Al goes, "Yeah, I asked the people if I can parody their work."
Yeah, and Chris Hardwick's like, "You got snapped on by Weird Al."
Yes.
Very funny.
Yeah, I love the TV scene. He's just like, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. And it's just like, yeah, because you're a douche nozzle. Like,
yeah.
Even his book publisher's like going, his publicist's like, yeah, I think the book crosses some lines. I think, yeah, I don't think you should have written this book, even though I'm helping you to promote it.
Yeah, and then we also get the sequence with Michael and the rednecks that try to beat him up in the field, which is shot super awesome. It's all lit by the truck headlights. We get brutal kills in this, but it's also the first time he has Michael make a sound where he grunts as he stabs.
Oh, he does that with Octavia. He makes a grunt when he's stabbing.
He grunt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I only heard it at that part, but I love that it's the start of him showing us that he's going to be doing very different things.
Yeah.
With again, and it's going to be very off-putting to some, but it's going to be what he wants in the picture, and what Bobby Z wants in the picture stays in the picture.
In the picture. It's no, he absolutely does, and I think his relationship to Laurie is different in the in these movies than they are in the original timeline. Do you think he actually wants to kill Laurie, or do you think he thinks by killing her he saves her? Like he brings her into this kind of weird family unit he's creating with his mother. Yeah,
I think by bringing her to the mom, I think is what he's thinking, which I think is why he takes her to the shed. I don't know if he knows that he's going to kill her. Yeah, is what I think. I think that what Bobby Z is doing so well in the movie is he's showing what Michael sees, and that's I think the question that was in his head when he was making this movie is, what is this like for Michael? And so seeing the mom and seeing his child self, and we're getting the conversation that's happening mentally in his head between his dead mom and himself. And I really love the scene where the mother is talking to the child self and adult Michael is standing behind him. Yes. And it's just there's some really cool dream sequence stuff in here where I just really like it. I get it if it doesn't work for people, but I think it's very cool if you're going to explore like what this is like for this Michael Myers character. It just really, really works for me. So I think at the end where she's being held by the child Michael Myers, but obviously no one's there. We know when Loomis comes in, he's like, there's no one
holding you. Yeah.
But by then she's so like mind melded in this weird telekinesis thing with Michael that I think all the stuff that he's exploring in this movie I think is really interesting. And I think if it wasn't called Halloween, then people wouldn't have such umbrage with it, I think, although some people just pump against Bobby Z's work. But I think that it really works. I think it's really interesting. I like all the big swings in this movie. I like that Daniel Roebuck, we get to see him as Frankenstein.
Yes.
And then we get to see him getting it on in that weird strip club, but and Jeffrey Daniel Phillips plays himself, but then he plays a character, but then he also hosts the party like later on.
I was confused. I was like, wait, I thought he died because I'm pretty sure Michael Myers just kills you in the alley, and then but no, apparently that's what he used to do. I can't remember where I heard it from. I think it was on when Daniel did the review on the Munsters that Jeff Daniel Phillips would sometimes go touring with Bobby Z and would get up in that makeup and just start doing vaudeville act first to open the show. So I think that's kind of what it is. But no, I absolutely adore that. But one thing I've noticed about watching this series again, there is this very sacrificial nature to Michael Myers that I don't think I see as much in the other main slasher franchises. And I think it's in here, especially when his relationship with Laurie, because he is trying to bring her to the altar or the shack where his mother is and to try and get him into the family, and whether he doesn't realize he's going to kill her, that's still kind of this weird sacrificial thing. And of course it becomes very obvious in things like the Cult of Thorn with Halloween 6. 4, he's much more on a mission, same with H2O, but it is this there's this kind of weird mystical kind of sacrificial nature. And yes, he is very much a shark. He is very much like Jaws. When he comes for you, he will come for you, and it also helps the fact that both those characters have a very specific score. Though I don't think the second one has it until the credits. You don't hear the Carpenter score. No,
so he was told he had to use it, and so he used it when he was done with the movie, basically.
Yeah, in the end credits.
So it still counts. Yeah, I also think that this is an interesting movie, too, because it gets Friday the 13th in your Halloween, because the whole idea of being in a shack talking to your dead mom, it's like, oh, this is Friday the 13th.
This is Jason. This is what Jason does.
he like gets to do whatever he wants with it. He's like, I'll make Halloween and Friday the 13th. I don't care.
Look, Friday the 13th Part 2 was almost a trailer. I'm just going to say that.
I love that. That's great.
Because he does, because he has his mom in a shack, and he has his mom in a shack in Halloween too.
Also, when we talked about the pizza thing, we neglected to say that it's intercut with Michael eating a dead dog. So
it really, I mean, every single time you get like a normal presented family life in a movie, you go see Michael and see what he's doing. He's like, he's eating a dead dog. It's just like this is how he lives.
We mentioned the Halloween party too. This Halloween party rules. I love this party, and I love that he created this Captain Clegg band just for the movie, and then recorded a full album. I just was like, he's living his best life he could possibly be living. And people are going to be like, I don't like him. It's like, well, you got to admit, if you thought of all your favorite things and got to live your life that way, you wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if you said you didn't like my movies.
Yeah, I mean, he has to fight for every single movie he makes. Yeah. I mean, this is a man who had worked with the Weinsteins, he's worked with Jason Blum, and I think it was getting to a stage where he's just like, which is why he does the Kickstarter movies, and I've never seen
31 was, right?
Yeah, 31 and possibly 3 from Hell. It was 3 from Hell and 31, I think, were both Kickstarter.
Oh, you got to see 31. It's not. I mean, it's basically like Running Man, Rob Zombie's Running Man, with a very small budget. But Richard Brake is amazing in it, and he has a monologue that in that movie that was like one of my favorite things I saw that year. It's chilling. It's great.
Yeah, I know a lot of people push against that one, but Rob Antequera also a big fan of 31 as well. For what you said, Richard Brake. Yeah, because he's always amazing in everything he shows up in.
Gives me goosebumps. That guy he deserves an award too.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love the fact that Richard Brake is in and Jeff Daniel Phillips are in a lot of Rob Zombie movies, put them in other movies, give them other stuff to do. They clearly both have range.
Yeah, I agree. I like them both. They're both fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Daniel Phillips' adorable face is him in Monsters, like the best thing ever. Yes.
And Jeff.
His adorable sexy face, I should say, because he's always pulling like a Blue Steel look every time he's trying to be sexy. It's amazing.
Yeah. And much like for me, the Texas Chainsaw movie last year, where he throws the sledgehammer and it snaps the guy's leg backwards, and I was like, oh my god, Jeff's head stomping in this movie. What the when that happened in the theater, it like shook the room. It was it's so visceral, intense, and so well shot that you don't see the cut. I kept trying to see it where I was like, where's the fake head? Because he stomps his head into mush.
He does.
Crazy.
Which I was so confused when Jeff Daniel Phillips came back. I'm like, pretty sure you're dead. That you don't survive getting your head just stamped into the mud. But I like the fact that he's playing dual characters. I like how Bobby Z will always keep his movies loose, that they can be, there's a chance of them getting surreal. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying before with Hellbound, how nothing is really done. Not everything needs to be explained. And there's a little bit in this. I think because Sherry Moon Zombie is from Michael's point of view, I think it's kind of an explanation about what she's doing, but you really don't, and you don't understand why there's a mental connection between Laurie and Michael, and you don't really understand why the fact that now she's seeing him at the end, or she's seeing her mother at the end. It's it's implicitly just a visual that's kind of enticing and intriguing without hitting you over the head, which this movie, to be fair, is hitting you over the head a lot, just with violence. Yeah.
And stomping on your head.
Stomping on your head,
I think I misspoke earlier, because I think what sets Michael in motion is a vision from the mom.
Yeah.
It's not until he is standing in the field and looks up and we see his face in full broad daylight. Again, feels like a Bobby Z finger to like all the fans, just to be like, hey, look.
Fully bearded, no mask. He doesn't wear the mask. He actually doesn't wear the mask that much in this movie.
Right,
Except for the end.
And then he sees the billboard. That's the thing. He and the mom both see the billboard, and that sets off that whole thing where Loomis is at the signing, and Chet, the bringer of death, gets his book signed. And then Linda's dad shows up with a gun. All of that stuff. And then she learns that her real name's Angel, and she's Angel Myers. She's related to Michael.
Yeah, you do not want to find out when you're already having a mental breakdown, sitting in a car, reading a book that says, oh, by the way, this is her now.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hard... I mean, when she's screaming again, she's just going to Annie, please tell me you didn't... Please tell me you knew. Please don't tell me. You kind of... If you've been keeping this from me, I don't know what to do with this. She's just like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. And one of my favorite moments in the movie is actually very uncomfortable. It's when she's at her work friend's place and they're getting ready to go out. And she says, and she's just hyperventilating. She can't cope. Mm-hmm. And she literally says, I'm Michael Myers' sister. And they don't believe her. And there's that really moment when you've got a friend who you want to comfort, who's going through something traumatic, you don't know how to comfort them, so you just stay with them, and just everything's very uncomfortable because it's more the situation of, like, I don't know how to help you right now,
right?
But I can't leave you because if I do, I don't know what's going to happen. It's that moment, and so they decide, okay, let's dress up in Rocky Horror Picture Show and go to this amazing Halloween party, which I do want to go to as long as Rob Zombie isn't as long as Michael Myers isn't around with a knife. But
yeah, I love the party sequence. I love the werewolf boy. He's so sweet. He's so sweet, and he gets killed. It's super fun. Nothing drags in this movie. I think it goes at a really good pace for all the things happening. I think that's super awesome. There's the part where Laurie is running and she falls on a road and a car approaches and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll drive you to safety." And it's Sean Whalen, who played Roach in People Under the Stairs. He's like in it for a minute, but the second I saw him, I was like,
murdered. The amount of people who show up that you know only to be murdered is astonishing. I'm surprised Margot Kidder and him and I think did not just get murdered because it's insane.
Yes, I'm glad they didn't kill Herman Hesse. He's such a sweet man.
I'm glad they didn't kill Margot Kidder. I would have been actually really upset if Michael Myers killed Margot Kidder. I'm like, no.
No, thank you.
Step too far. I'm already upset about Annie or Danielle Harris. I do not need to be upset about you doing stuff to Margot Kidder.
Yeah. I love that we get Brad Dourif punching Loomis in the face. You get that moment. It's super good. And then Loomis sneaks his way into the shed with Michael, and we get the big face-off that happens through bolts of light. It looks very, very cool. And then, Michael bashes him through the wall and kills him and gets shot by all the cops.
Yes, and then Paul, but actually, do you think Loomis goes to Michael because he thinks he can help, or because he's searching for this glory that he thinks that he's lost after the Chris Hardwick interview?
Oh, I think it's very much the redemption of a career.
Yeah.
He just wants to rectify the book sales and everything.
He knows he fucked up.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think that's the thing that. I mean, there's so many things people hate because they're comparing this to John Carpenter's because they're like, that's not how Dr. Loomis is, but it's just a character. This is a different thing. But the Loomis in this world is very much like trying to write that best-selling book, to get that movie deal, to be a celebrity version of like what Margot Kidder's already bad at. Like it's like he wants to have notoriety and not be a laughing, stock. But so yeah, I mean, he deserves his death very much so.
Oh, yeah, I was just sort of wondering, because when he sees the TV, he does have this look on his face, because Malcolm McDowell is a very good actor, and I'm always sort of wondering, is he thinking I'm the one person who can communicate? Well, he thinks he's the one person who can communicate with Michael. He's not. Or is this a thing of like, this is my chance, I can redeem my career, get the book sales, make people think that I'm not just exploiting the situation, when obviously I'm exploiting the situation. And when Brad Dourif sees him there, he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, you can tell it's just like this, it's just this one tiny thing on top of the worst night of his life, and then he sees that guy, and he's just like going, oh, fuck, no.
Because she wouldn't know that she was his sister if it wasn't for that
exactly,
book.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to punch you in the face and probably shoot you unless they stop me.
I mean, to say... I would actually say this is all Loomis's fault. I mean, yes, people don't like him because he's not Loomis. Dr. Loomis in the John Carpenter movies and the 6 movies afterward, not exactly a brilliant doctor. I mean,
right.
He's not great. He's not a great medical professional. Let's just be clear. Halloween is a series filled with not great medical professionals. But yeah, it's kind of, he sets things in motion. He's playing with a force that he does not still understand. At least, the other Loomis fully understood what Michael was capable of, which is why he kept going absolutely nuts. But this Loomis still has the arrogance to think that he has control over him, that he can still bring him down.
Well, Bobby C's also showing us from this awful traumatic horror experience what one path for Laurie, who very much gets attention, does not want it, is always treated or viewed differently, does not want it, and she just wants to be normal. And then you have Loomis, who very much wants to be treated differently and who very much wants people to acknowledge it and to make him this like well-known because of this situation. These two people share this experience and are reacting in entirely different ways. And then they're brought together in this final moment where because it's Bobby Z. Everybody dies, and then he doesn't leave it at that though. He gives us this wonderful aerial shot zooming down to them, the three bodies on the grass. They're all expiring or dead, and then we get this final moment inside Laurie's head in this long hallway, and the mom's there with the horse, and it's just like, I just love this nice little cap on the end that originally in the theatrical version she lives, and it kind of leaves you the idea that she's alive, but look, she's going to be Michael Myers is basically what's going to happen. But then Rob, like, what his big vision, sorry, Bobby Z, was to have, they're dead.
Yeah.
So
no, because I always wondered, I thought, is this in her head or is this she's in a mental asylum? Because I think I have seen the theatrical where it shows that she's alive and is in an asylum and is now going to be Michael Myers. But this one, you're right, it's in her head because the shot is impossible. Like, the bed is at the end of a corridor. Mm-hmm. It's not, and then when you look at the wall, it's changed again. So no, it's
her final thought, I think, is what he's giving us.
Yeah, it's her final thought. I never thought about that, but it is absolutely, because she's got shot 3 times. I mean, she's not getting up from that again.
No, this is the end. He's not going, there's going to be another one. He's like, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Like, oh,
Brad, and it's just Brad Dourif alone in the house with whiskey. He's broken. He's done.
Oh, I hope he moves.
I know.
Never use that bathroom again.
Oh my God. But no, and I think I love the ending with Laurie dying. As tragic as that is, I don't see how, because the character's not going to get better. She's not.
There's no coming back.
There's no coming back at all. Not from what she survived, gone through that night. I mean, her reaction when she finds Annie is, and Annie's still alive, and she's like, stay with me, you can do this. And Annie's just like, no.
So rough.
It's so rough.
I also love in this movie how he uses sound, and I know Tyler Bates was the composer, but there's like parts where he drops the audio completely, like we don't hear anything, and then when it returns it's like glass smashing or some sort of impact. It's like he does these really like visceral things with sound, so it's cool to see him play with obviously the visual aspects that we know and love for the next film, but also these like, the audio cues and things that he's doing. I really appreciated this movie a lot more on this viewing. Like I knew I appreciated what it was doing. I obviously buy things that traumatize me, so I owned it already, but I didn't have plans to rewatch it a billion times. But this time, having watched it, and again with the commentary, I just have a huge appreciation for it and for the cast of people he loves to work with and the new people that he brings on. I think it's really interesting, and I love interesting. I'll take that over a rehashing of the same idea over and over and over again. Give me big swings. That's why I like Malcolm McDowell, because I think he makes very specific choices, but also goes for a big swing. And yeah, and I really appreciate that. And like we said, Taylor Scout Compton suffered so hard in this. Give her an award over Leo in The Revenant, I think.
Yeah, I think the emotional play she had to keep putting herself into day after day after day has got to be
such a dark place.
Such a dark place. I mean, this is not a place that you ever really want to go, and a lot of people have, and a lot of people are living in that space, but to actually put yourself in it for work, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, and like, in the commentary, Bobby Z keeps talking about how cold it was in different scenes, and he does that.
You can see the breath. Yeah.
Yeah, he does that for the next film he did after this. He talks about when the witches were naked and stuff. He's like, it was like 10 below zero or something, and these gals were all out there naked. He's like, I don't know how they do it. So when you're thinking about actors and being like, I don't like this one or that one, also think about these terrible sacrifices they make for the movies that we get to watch, because it's not all being all warm and cozy and pampered all the time, especially for this level of filmmaking.
No, not when you work with Bobby Z. This movie is hard to watch. I would say I can't turn away from it because I think it is very beautiful in some parts, especially with the dream sequences, some things when he's just on Laurie and she's just losing it. I think there's some really beautiful shots in there. It's really, really gorgeous, and the kind of how grainy it looks. It looks like it's shot on film, even though I think it was shot digitally. But it's looks like it's got a film quality to it. But there is a point to this. Yes, the point is sadness. The point is trauma. The point is no one's getting back up. But there is a point to everything that happens. There is a reason why Laurie's going through what she's going. There's a reason why Loomis is a dick and still does not get redemption at the end.
Right.
There's a reason for why things are happening, and he's just talking about violence begetting more violence, and it just ends in suffering. There's nothing you can come back to. And yes, a lot of people get annoyed, but it explains Michael. It does, but it's still I find it still as terrifying as this mythical figure coming out of nowhere with a knife. This is like, oh no, this is someone who is so broken that there is no way you can put him back together. None.
Right. Well, and I think that was like the initial seed of an idea was that Rob was like, Bobby Z was like, what is this for Michael? What is this like for Michael, for Michael's